Don't have anybody in here yet, but that's okay. We got plenty of people in the chat, and that's all that really matters. You guys have been pretty vocal over in the chat already. I'll see that come up here on this screen in just a minute. I'm glad so many people were ready to talk about this some more today. So I don't know if Nikon, well, I do. I think Nikon is hearing us. I really do. And you know what? When I say that, it's not just me or the guest that they're hearing, it's you guys. You guys in the chat talking about what you want. That's what Nikon wants to see. So you guys just keep plugging away in the chat with whatever it is you want Nikon to do, and let them see how many people really want these cameras and what they want in these cameras. That's the only way we're going to convince them that you know, we are the consumer, and we hope that the manufacturers will consider the consumers when they're making these big decisions. So you guys keep it up. You're doing great. Mr. Jeffrey just joined us. Let's get Mr. Jeff Neville in here. Jeff, how
Hello.
are you today?
Good. How you doing?
I have no audio. Is that on my end? Go ahead.
Hopefully.
Yep, it is. All right. Sorry, just had the volume down on the speakers here. All right. Robert Daniels, good to see you in here, man. Hero Shots in here, and so many others. Roy Bigsby, Michael McDermott, Ray Powell, uh, here's J Rod Photo Art. Mr. James is in here with us. Oh, man. A lot of people in here. Which sound is breaking up, Roy? Mine or
mine, or both.
voice is clipping a little? Okay. Well, you know what? Let me see if I just pull the gain back a little bit. Maybe it helps. Mozman, how you doing, brother? Briar's in here. Mr. Mega Briar Patch. Sounds
Wow.
good?
Good crowd.
All right. Michael McDermott.
They're all waiting for you.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I've been chatting with them already in the pre-chat over there. Do I own a Z9? I was wondering, let's see how bad the big dog is. I know Vihography has one. Yeah, actually, I do, Michael. I do have a Z9, and I'll be shooting with it here Saturday, doing some studio work for my lovely stepdaughter, Miss Amanda. And then we're going to actually do a shoot, just us doing a shoot for, well, whatever we come up with on the 29th of the month, I believe. So thanks, Jeff. Leslie Wildlife Nature Photography. All right. Glad we got the mic sorted out. Just so you guys know, how you doing, buddy? Hassan, good to see you. Sith since 81. Good to see you. All right. So yeah, as I was saying earlier, um, we're going to continue this chat. You know, is Nikon hearing us? And I think that they are. And I think that for several reasons, there just seems to be a lot more going on. Nikon seems to be responding to some things, not just because we've said it, but other people have said it as well. You know, reaching down to smaller channels and looking for other influencers out in the YouTube world, which is always a good thing because the folks that we have in the influencer group around YouTube don't seem to do us any favors. I know a lot of people saw the Tony and Chelsea clickbait title they put up, and I'll tell you right now, I haven't watched it. So if you guys want to talk about it, that's fine. You know, you can let me know what was in it, but all that is for views. They're looking for angry Nikon shooters to jump in there and give them more and more views. And I just refuse to do that.
I don't watch it either, Chuck. I don't even bother. It's like,
yeah.
no. You shouldn't have to resort. If you have to resort to those methods to get people to watch your channel, then your content can't be very good. Then I feel sorry for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Greg Wilson made it today. Good to see you, buddy. Roy says, I prefer photography channels to the Northrops. Yeah, I agree with you. You know, Vahagan and I were talking about this. Again, this is an idea that I had, this whole live stream thing as a regular, rather than just oh just dropping videos, which again, as I've said before, I will wind up doing some videos as well. But this is a new concept. And I've also noticed that more and more people seem to be wanting to do things live now, which is a good thing. But to have a channel that's dedicated to the audience and dedicated to you having a voice, that was the goal in the beginning. And so far it's worked out well. And you guys have done that. So Gustavo, good to see you. Shiny object. Sorry, I'm just watching the chat and talking at the same time. So again, I think Nikon hears us, and it's because of the chat and everything that goes on the channel. Same thing over on Vahagen's channel, doing the live streams. You know, maybe this is what we needed to do a long time ago with Nikon. I actually tried this about 3 years ago, and I was still traveling, so I didn't have time to make this a regular offering to anybody on YouTube. So anyway, so let's see. Anything else in the chat before I jump over here to you, Jeff? Daw777 says, totally agree about Northrop. Still hoping to get out and shoot with you before you move out of Connecticut. Yeah, we're going to have to do that. I'm sorry. Again, between this and taking care of all the honeydews that Mama has for me, it just keeps me busy. But oh, Gustavo's in here for his lunch break. But we're gonna make that happen. We're gonna make that happen. Maybe we can find some others. As a matter of fact, I'm talking to Frame Voyager, John over at Frame Voyager. He wants to do a collab using the Z9 for video, and I'm all about that. I definitely want him to come in on that. He's the video expert. I think he wants to do some comparisons and things like that. So hopefully we can get that set up here soon. Maybe if we do, we'll have a get together for those that are in the area that want to get together at the same time. Don't know where or when yet, but I'll keep everybody informed. Michael's bought a Nikon Z6 II, two Z primes. Did a modeling shoot outdoors last weekend. Still found the eye autofocus wonky, or I'm doing something wrong. No, I don't know that you're doing anything wrong. It's just how you set the camera up, and I guess that contradicts my first statement. You're not doing anything wrong. But it's not as sticky and it's not as easy to use as what we expect coming down the road from the Z9 Tech and autofocus. It is doable, but just stick with it. And oftentimes it appears that and I know you've gone back and reviewed your photos, but oftentimes it appears that the eye box wasn't on the eye. However, when you review the photos, you find out that, wow, man, it's dead on. So I don't know. It's kind of a strange situation, which is why we keep complaining and talking about, Nikon needs to fill out this, the camera roadmap with all this new technology. Hang on. I just had something go crazy over here.
That's one reason, though, if you talk to some pros out there that do modeling, portraits and things like that, is a lot of them will stop down one or two stops. They don't always shoot wide open. And the advantage of even just stopping down one stop is to give you that wiggle room if you're off a little bit. So, I mean, if you stop down one stop, then if say the eye autofocus is grabbing the eyelash and not the eyeball, it's not going to matter with that extra stop. The eye's going to be sharp as well. So it really only becomes a problem if you like to shoot wide open all the time, because then, that's going to show any little glitches or whatever with the eye autofocus. But if you stop it down one or two stops, you're going to be fine.
Yeah. Anybody else? I know J Rod just said that since the firmware update, he hasn't seen any issues with it. And I think that, everybody's having a different experience, which is, again, one of the things we need to get away from in Nikon. Nikon needs to make this easier and standard across the board in all the cameras that are coming out. And I think they will. Hang on a minute. Oh, I thought we had a call, but we don't. All right. I'll put the number up in a few minutes and let everybody call in. Oh.
Just for the record, I'm wearing a Greg Norman T-shirt for my Aussie friends today.
uh, Great golfer. Yeah, Long Rider, you're right. Nikon is on the right path, which is why I expect big things this year. I'm really happy to say I have a lot of confidence that Nikon's going to really climb out of the shell this year. So, and I'm sticking to my guns on the Z8. I do believe that we're going to see something around October, an announcement at least. Who knows what else is in the pipeline? Right now, though, the close target is the two APS-C bodies. We know it's rumored that we have one coming. We just don't know exactly what it is. But two cameras are registered, so I would expect two, and it just may be one of those surprises that Nikon does for us, just like they did with the D500. Could one of them be a more pro level APS-C body? I hope so, and I think a lot of people out there hope so as well, because I know there are still a lot of APS-C shooters. Me, for one, I'm not interested in it, but that doesn't mean I don't want to see Nikon do it and do it well. So I am a bit concerned about the screaming that's going to take place over DX lenses. And I don't know how that's going to interrupt flow for all the other lenses that are coming out. So we just don't want to get in a battle with ourselves, full framers and APS-C shooters over what we need next. There are enough people out there, I guess, bashing Nikon products. They don't need us infighting over it, but no doubt that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Oh,
Fortunately, you're gonna have to, if you buy one, you need to realize that you may have to go third-party lens. Although some of those third-party lenses are, they get reviewed,
yeah.
some of the cheaper ones, and some people like, and some say, they're not anywhere near as good as a Nikon lens would be. So you got to be careful with that. You just got to do your
Yep.
homework.
And, Michael, that is the key. One, you can go right back to shooting all the mirrorless cameras just like you did with your DSLRs. And single point autofocus works just fine. And I've had to revert to that on the Z9. You've heard me talk about shooting small birds, especially birds in brush. I think, Jeff, you've talked about it too at
Yeah.
times. You know what? When I have an issue, I just go back to single point and everything seems to work out just fine. We expect the autofocus to be absolutely magic. And you know what? None of the cameras are without issues when it comes to some of these challenges for autofocus. The A1, the R3, and everybody will argue over which one is better at it, even though there may be some issues. But I'll just tell you right now, talking to a friend, hobbyist that shoots all three cameras, and he says he experiences the same thing between the three. So there you have it. It's going to continue to get better, obviously, but an autofocus for a lot of things in that Z9 is just absolutely fantastic. As Ronald Pollard said recently, I feel guilty taking money from people for taking photos now with the autofocus in the Z9. It's just that good. And it is. It really is. But we seem to concentrate on problems more than we do on successes. I'm not, when I say that, I don't mean just you or me or whatever, but obviously the photography world, at large, and that's where the influencers come in. They grab onto these little bitty things that they don't harp on in other brands and really stick it to Nikon. But you know what? That's changing. There's Mr. Vahography. How
Hey,
you doing, Vahagan?
morning. Well, people should look back on what we used to have to use years ago, and
Yeah,
realize that your keeper rate now is so much higher than what it was 20 years ago. It's ridiculous. So, you're never going to have 100%.
right.
And it's not always the camera either. Sometimes it's the person behind it. So you just if you're getting 95% keepers, which I think is what you really get now with a Z9, at least 95%, you really have nothing to complain about at all.
No, no. And again, my mistake. As soon as I got the Z9, I expected it to be absolutely magic, meaning it would miss nothing no matter what you do. Okay, that isn't the case, but it seems to be the same across the board with the other brands as well. So, and I'm sure somebody that's shooting an A1 or an R3 may chime in and disagree, but everybody has their brand, and there is some brand loyalty, obviously, with your brand, and you want it to be better than the others, or believe that it is anyway. So, but of course, my unbiased friend shooting all three brands, he says he sees all three cameras. They may do something a little bit different, and you may enjoy the ergonomics of one over the other, or maybe even colors for whatever reason over one over the other. However, he says when it comes to capability, he said all three brands are competing successfully with each other. There isn't one that he can identify that's best over the others. So there you have it. I can't say that because I don't have an A1 or an R3, nor am I going to buy one. Not because I think they're bad cameras, just because I don't have the the ability to go out and buy all these cameras and try them, and I'm not even going to rent them to try them. I'll leave that up to you guys in the chat. You guys are the ones that uh, bring it up and talk about it, your comparisons, and I think it's great. Uh, I don't think any present camera will still work in 20 years. uh, Roy talking about it. You may be right, Roy. You may be right. Now that we're in the computer age and the camera body, you're probably very right. It's not as mechanical as it used to be, just like working on cars. I used to be able to do anything I needed to do to my car. Can't do that anymore because everything's computer controlled now. Uh, Michael talking about his used D700 he bought. $225 is a great price for a great camera. I owned it. I enjoyed it. Took a lot of photos with it, a lot of event photos, because then the D700 was king. I'll tell you. Still a good camera, though. So, so I put in the description for this the three different cameras: the Z6, or the Z8, Z7 III, and basically a Z6 III, or at least that's the way I see it. But I gave the specs about each camera and asked, which camera do you want? And there's a reason for that. Again, I go back to Nikon is listening, and you guys have an opportunity here to possibly determine the route Nikon goes. A lot of people are saying that if we get the Z8, what are they going to do with the Z7 line? Or maybe they won't even have a Z8. They'll just take the Z7 III and make it the camera that we want, the all-rounder. But as Roy said, he doesn't want 100 megapixels. If Nikon's going to go down that path and do what the other manufacturers are probably getting ready to do and give us a super high megapixel camera, do you want to be stuck with that if you want the all-rounder 100 megapixel camera? I don't. I would prefer they go with the Z7 III and make that the A7R competitor, or the I don't even know what Canon had. What did Canon have? They went that route too, high megapixel, and then just the everyday shooter, event shooter model. And I can't remember what they were. But which camera do you want? And if somebody wants a 100 megapixel camera, good on them. If somebody wants a lower megapixel camera, that's great too. Or do you want video capability, or do you want more still capability? And Nikon has that opportunity right now to do this with the cameras that are out, plus the Z8. They can give everybody pretty close to what they want, and nobody's complaining they had to buy something they didn't want, except for video. And you're stuck with that now. Sorry about that, but that's just the way it is today.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're not going to be able to pump all these out at the same time. So, uh, depending on if they are listening to the to what people say on the chats and whatnot, um, everybody isn't going to be happy. There's going to be some that are going to be ticked off, because they're just not going to be able to push all the buttons at exactly the same time. So
Yeah.
the
Well, I
the
think that,
complaining is not going to ever go away, and the bashing will never go away, because if Nikon, say, doesn't do a 100 megapixel camera, that'll give Tony and Chelsea something to bash them on. And if they do come out with a 100 megapixel camera and don't do a Z8, then they'll switch gears and scream because there's no Z8. So it's you know it's fun to complain, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I think, we have legitimate gripes, and we've aired those things, and there's certain things that they need to do, and they should know they need to fill in some gaps, and hopefully they're smart enough to just be doing it on their own without even having to listen to us. But it's good that we're kind of
yeah.
trying to point them in the right direction.
Hello, SJ Square. Good to see you in here, man. One of these days, I have to, you need to come on the show, jump in here with us, and speak your piece as well, buddy. I continue to watch everything you're producing. I may not be able to stick around for the whole thing, but definitely watching, SJ. So let's forget about right now the compromises with any one of these cameras. Let's forget about, whether 100 megapixels is going to be a problem, noise or whatever, or file size. Which camera do you want? And again, I go back to Nikon is listening, and they're not just listening to me. It's not one person that's going to make a difference in Nikon's decision making process. It may not be any of us. However, as long as we know that they are listening to what's going on out here in the YouTube world, talking about Nikon, which camera would you prefer? What do you want in a camera? And make sure you put that in the chat, because I'm sure they're reading the chat. They want to know what the consensus is out here in the world to what Nikon should do next. And if we have enough people talking about it, there's a good chance maybe they pay more attention and revise where they're at and where they're going.
There was a comment. I don't know if it was on your last show, Chuck, or on Vahagen's show yesterday, which I was not able to stay on very long. I had some things, going on, but where we got in a little bit of a talk about whether the next a Z8 would have no mechanical shutter or not, and then there was a comment by someone, which was correct, that the dynamic range has been a little bit better on the cameras that have a shutter. But I went and I looked into that a little bit more. So I compared the sensor on the Z9 to the Z7 II, and realistically, the DxO score on the Z9 is 98, and it's 100 on the Z7 II. And the differences are, so depth's the same. The dynamic range, the Z7 II is maybe 1/3 of a stop better, which is really irrelevant. That's really nothing. And the noise on the noise that you'd get on a Z7 II is a little bit less than what you're going to get on a Z9. But none of it, it's like a third of an EV better on a Z7 II when it comes to signal to noise ratio. And that's really not much of anything either. So when you're buying a camera, and all these people that are on our chat know this, but for anybody who's new, you don't buy a camera for any one thing. You got to look at the whole package.
Right.
You got to look at frames per second. You want to get hung up on DxO scores on sensors, go ahead and do it. But you also got to worry about handling and ergonomics and the video features and the storage capacity. What kinds of cards do you use? There's 50 million things to look at, and you really shouldn't get hung up on any one.
Yeah. And I don't follow a DP review at all. I don't care to, because I don't like the lens charts and everybody basing their purchases on just the numbers, because there are so many lenses that wouldn't do well on the DxO DxO review, uh, but they're loved lenses by shooters for whatever characteristic that they may have. So yeah, sharpness is great. However, I don't even care about the corner to corner sharpness, because I'm not an astrophotographer or a landscape photographer, and I understand why they would. I get it. But for portraits or event shooting or anything like that, the fall off in the corners actually adds to the photo, if you ask me. All right. So that's why I don't follow DP review on any of their lens reviews or anything like that. And I know a lot of people get, happy when Nikon seems to have a lens that, tops the chart, or a camera body that tops the chart. But really, I don't put any stock in any of that. So I don't follow it. It may be nice to know what the signal to noise ratio is, but most of us can't understand what they're talking about. And we just want to see it. Give me a photo and let me look at it, and I'll apply my own signal to noise thoughts on it.
Oh, and a lot of people darken the corners intentionally anyway
Yeah,
with their
yeah,
with their software. So they'll complain that the lens does it a little bit, but then they'll make it darker in their software. So what's the beef? You're doing it
yeah,
anyway.
yeah. Exactly. If you're just going to manipulate the photo, which again goes back to the lenses,
Yeah.
there are just lenses out there that people love just because there's something significant about how it renders or whatever. So, yeah.
I mean, so you crop 2% of it away and it's gone, or you lighten it up with the software and you get rid of it that way. It's not the end of the world. It's one more step, and some people don't. They will say, whether it be processing things with software or fooling around with the features on a camera, that all these one more steps add up. So then they don't like
Yeah.
the thing, but realistically, it's not really that many one more steps out there.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, you know what, Matthew, you're absolutely right. But you know what? That doesn't carry water anymore. The problem is now marketing is taken over, and it definitely drives the trend on what capabilities or architecture there is in a camera body. So two slots, two memory slots is just become the absolute must have for professional photographers. And I'm not going to argue that they don't need it or whatever. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but it's now a marketing tool. And if you have one slot in a camera nowadays, that would be just death. I mean, look at what they did to the early Z7 and the Z6. That was the big issue. Although Canon had a single card slot camera that they introduced as well, but it didn't get near the hype, or hatred that Nikon got. Because that goes back to everybody's looking for a dog to kick, and Nikon's been the dog to kick since the mirrorless wars began. But I think that no, I don't think, I know they're on a comeback. The technology is there. Nikon's got it. They've proven it in the Z9. And now what do we want to see in the cameras that fall out underneath it? And does Nikon need to drop a Z8 this year or a Z7 III this year with all the new tech? Do they? I think they do. What do you guys think? They have to get something out there. I think the Z9 is waning now, and all the people that think that oh shoot, Nikon's going to ride the Z9 for a couple of years, you're absolutely wrong. Too many people waiting for something other than the Z9 that are not buying the Z9, so they're not going to cannibalize the Z9 by dropping a Z8 or a Z7 III with some of this new technology. There are people that are waiting specifically for that. And I think you're seeing the sales probably go down on the Z9 now. Those that would buy it have bought it, pre-purchased, or put their name on a list. And oh, by the way, you can still get a Z9 if you just hunt. Uh-oh.
Well, I
Everybody,
think a
go
big
ahead.
thing is the price point. All this thing about taking away from Z9 sales, I don't believe that for 1 minute. You're talking totally different price point. You're talking maybe a $3,500 camera versus a $5,500 camera. And to some people, it's just they just can't afford that 5,500, period. So they're going to wait, and they're holding back, and they've been holding back.
Yeah, and you know what? If they continue to do that, they're just gonna get beat up even more because they have no lineup underneath the Z9 right now.
Yeah.
Because I don't include the Z6 II and Z7 II in there. It has to be the 3 versions with this new tech. Go ahead, Vahagan. Welcome, buddy.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello.
How's it going?
What's your temperature out there in California?
90 degrees.
Yeah, I'm not sure where we're at now, but we've been over 100 degrees with the humidity being absolutely awful all week. Absolutely, I don't even go outside.
Oh yeah.
I've been hiding in the house the whole week.
Yeah, it's hot over here.
James asks, is that the new Z8 hat you have on? You know what? That's what I ought to do is get a Z8 shirt.
So what did I miss?
Just talking about Nikon's listening, and you know, I want everybody in the comments to make sure that they throw in the comment what they want, which camera, whatever, because if Nikon's listening, as you and I know, Vahagan, it's not just to us, the speakers up here in the guest house, it's all the comments that follow. That's what they're most interested in, is what the people have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, what's up, guys? Long Rider. Yeah. Let's do it.
Welcome, David Bransba. 92 in Alabama. I know my brother's down in Tennessee, and he said it is just miserable hot, even at night.
So, what's going on with that new video? Did you guys see it?
I have not. So well, give us a rundown.
I don't give them the pleasure of entertaining me.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah, that video.
Give us the rundown. What'd they say?
Just a bunch of BS.
Yeah, of course.
The Z30 breaking news. You know, it's like a
So
mock-up.
what specs did they give for the Z30? Because I haven't watched it, and I'm definitely not going to, but what kind of specs did they give, and what kind of confidence did they have in the specs they gave?
No specs. There was no specs on that, Jeff. Did you
I
watch
thought
the
he's
video?
no, I
No.
don't watch them. I'm not giving them another view. I refuse to.
Just they made a mock-up of what the camera could look like.
A paper mache.
Yeah, and then he went off on the Z9, saying that it doesn't have any hard. It's not the sensor, Sony, this and that. You know the drill.
Yeah. Again, see, it's just clickbait for views. That's what they do.
Yeah, but he just keeps bashing them. You know.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're talking about what Nikon needs to come out with and what may be coming out, because that's what shuts them up is when Nikon gets back on the train here and fills out this camera roadmap, then they have less to talk about and we can really laugh at them.
Yeah, it's the thing is that this Nikon, I mean, Hasselblad has a camera that's the top of the line medium format camera, that $32,000 100C, and that sensor is made by Sony, I think. So why isn't he bashing that?
Well, yeah, and maybe I ought to do a little investigative reporting on this. Just get off my butt and do it. I mean, the bottom line is Sony has a division within Sony Corporation, which is a myriad of divisions that do different things, and the chip manufacturer, or whatever we call it, division, builds the chips and sensors and you name it for everybody and anybody. not just for Sony cameras. And Sony camera division doesn't build a thing other than the bodies and the lenses or whatever, their imaging division. And, so to say that Nikon's walking in and to a store and grabbing a sensor off a shelf as Sony produced it by their specs is just ridiculous. It's laughable. I don't know why people keep sticking to that. Why do they think that it is a thing?
Well,
Nikon contracts them to build these to their specs.
Yeah, they design the sensor. They
Yes.
design what they want, and then they just make it. But it's a different division anyway.
Yes, and here you go, Matthew. You're right. There are only a couple or three of manufacturers in the world. Who did Nikon? Who did Sony buy out for their chip division? I can't remember. Who knows?
I'm not. I don't remember, but Matthew, is that right? That the GFX is made by Sony? The sensor?
And if it is, why isn't Tony and Chelsea beating up Fuji for it's a Sony camera?
See, there you go. Same thing. I mean, he just has this thing with Nikon. He has this, as the mafiosos would say. Well, I don't want to say it, but a beef with Nikon, and he just keeps doing it. And he's not learning his lesson.
Yeah. There you go, Sith Sense. You're right. Sony Semiconductor. Here you go. Mozman's on it. Manufacturing is under the Sony group. Yes. There you go. It's not under the camera division. It is not.
Yeah. Totally separate.
Yes. And they build semiconductor, parts, pieces, whatever for everybody and anybody. It's not just Nikon running over there and grabbing the sensor out of the A1. Hey, we'll take this one as is. No.
I know you guys haven't watched the video, but I was just curious, so I clicked on it, and I was just reading through all the comments this morning.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are, again, I guess he doesn't care what he get, like the response he gets. He doesn't really care. Yeah.
He gets a click. That adds to revenue.
Hey Chuck, I could play the same game on them right now. You want me to do a 2-second thing here?
Yeah.
I'll get TNC torqued up. Oh, I got a mock-up of a new Sony camera here for everybody to see. Look at this. Nice and rectangular, nice shiny knobs, very sleek. Look at that. You even have an ASA guide on the back.
There you go.
You got to cock the shutter. You got to cock the shutter before you release it. I mean, this is high tech, baby. This is the next Sony coming out. I'll tell you, that's my guarantee. It'll look just like this.
Exactly. I mean, wow.
At least I got a real mock-up. I didn't make one up on the computer. I got the real deal.
It's just getting old. You know what I mean?
Hey, so Eric Ramon talking about the Z8 should be 61 megapixel stacked sensor camera, 6K video, and 10-bit internal. Okay, and that's fine. Do we want to give up a lower megapixel camera though, and for a lot of other purposes? So if that is the Z8, then does the Z7, we keep the Z7 and it becomes the all-rounder? Because I don't think 61 megapixel is going to be the all-rounder. I don't think a lot of people want that. As a matter of fact, so many people are calling for a very low megapixel camera, which we're not going to get. According to Peter over at Nikon Rumors, he had made the statement that Nikon says they want to get away from the 24 megapixel. So, and if they get away from the 24, they're surely not going down. They're going to go up. So I don't know. And this is why I say, if you look at the description for this show, I threw 3 camera bodies in there, or 3 choices and see what you think. Which one would you choose? And we can call them Z7 III, Z8, Z6 III, or whatever we want. However Nikon chooses to name them. But those are the three categories that I think Nikon needs to look at for the Z8, Z7 III, Z6 III.
There was a part in the video where he went to his garage and he's
Oh, yeah?
showing up, and then he was showing off his cars. I'm
Were
not kidding.
were the cars made by Sony too? I bet you there's Sony chips in those cars. Get on them about that. Say, hey, you got your car from Sony. It's got a Sony chip in it. Oh my God.
So,
Man.
Terry, when I say this, I'm not saying they need to build all three this year, okay? But at a minimum, they need that all-rounder this year. That's what everybody's waiting for, not the 100 megapixel camera or the whatever. Everybody's waiting for the baby Z9. And, you know, and I'm not going to entertain any, it's going to cut into the Z9 sales. It is not. It will not. But that's the camera that needs to be out this year, because there's nothing out there. Nikon has a void. You know, I don't count the Z7 II and the Z6 II in the lineup anymore.
Yeah, not to mention him again, but have you done a search? He's on Wikipedia. Tony.
Under what? L for loser?
If you read his Wikipedia page, it's quite amusing. He won an award for, I guess, the sexiest geek in 2000.
There you go.
I'm not kidding. Anyway, back to serious conversation.
No, they're you know, and we knew this was going to come up in the conversation, and it should. But again, I didn't watch it, so I can't speak to it. But it sounds like they really said nothing at all, other than Nikon sucks.
No, they didn't say anything. He just says breaking news. It's not breaking news, man.
What? Talking about clickbait.
The only breaking is everybody breaking up laughing watching him. That's what's breaking.
And I actually fell for it for a minute there when he showed the picture of the Z30. I mean, and then he says, "Oh, it's a mock-up."
Yeah. You know where he got that? He got that off Nikon Rumors. He had to, because that's the only place I've seen that little small camera with and without a viewfinder.
Yeah.
Somebody mocked it up over in Nikon Rumors. So he can't even get his own mock up. He had to go steal one.
Yeah, a few of our guys are on the comments. John Ishii left a comment. Z Wade left a comment.
So
John Ishii, he sent me an email.
Respond to Greg Wilson's question for me. My Osprey trip is Friday. Friday morning, I go on my half a day boat cruise to get Osprey babies in the nest. So I'll probably, if I have good luck, I'll have a video on that down the road.
Hey, remember that issue I had and I called you last night, Chuck, about that comment?
Yeah.
About one of the guys trying to do a calculation of the ads and the numbers, this and that.
Yeah.
You remember that? So how come they don't do that in this video?
Yeah.
Man. But the Z8, yeah, man, the Z8. I'm thinking maybe, when do you say fall? In the fall?
I say October. Yeah. It just makes sense.
It does.
And look at the comments in here. Everybody's waiting for that camera. You know what? Nikon could. We have another working pro, Mr. Ronald Pollard. How you doing today, sir?
I'm well, thank you, fellas. I am well. Thank you.
Hi, Ron.
Looking good.
Good to see you, fellas. Good to see the team.
Good to see you as well. So did you watch the Tony and Chelsea video?
there was something that went wrong with my eyes when it popped. But the sudden blindness, man, that just overtook me, and I just couldn't see it, and I slipped and fell on a banana peel at the same time. So
Yeah, I
I
hear
think
you.
you have to wear sunglasses as a new prerequisite. You have to wear sunglasses before you watch anything from them.
I just had enough of clickbait, man.
Hey, do you guys agree with this comment? Nikon has no other opinion or option. Every new camera needs to have better autofocus or they are in trouble.
Yes.
I think that's across the board for every company.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I agree. But I mean, I definitely agree with you, James, because this is what Nikon's being beat up about. Again, going back to, let's not talk about how we get around the issue of autofocus. Let's talk about how it appears in marketing. And I'm sorry, but today marketing is king, and that's what's selling, products. So,
Mm-hmm.
Wait, Chuck, you mentioned that Nikon's getting beat up, but beat up by who?
but by all the influencers out there,
Who cares what they say?
and no, and people in the chat here will tell you somebody's already talked about it. The new tech needs to come out in these cameras.
They will. It will.
Well,
I mean,
it will, but I understand that. But I mean, Nikon right now has nothing but a one camera lineup when it comes to that.
No, Chuck. Well, I mean, it's a catch-22 in my opinion. It's a catch-22 because Nikon could also talk about the quality of file image, the usability, the artistic nature of file image, which goes to your point of marketing. But I mean, how long do we beat that one horse? How long?
At least this year.
And here's the other thing, Chuck. When do we turn the discussion? When do we market craftsmanship? When do we talk about, just like the young lady yesterday on Vahagen's line, Saunders to Sandra? When do we turn the discussion to that? Because whether she had a Nikon, Canon, Sony, or whatever, or Fuji, she was struggling with concert work.
Yeah. I agree with you. I agree with you, Ron. I agree with you there.
I'm saying both things are true, Chuck. At the same time, they're both true. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
No, I agree with you. I don't have a problem with that at all. However, look at the clamoring in even the chat here, but across the web, people talking about they want the Z9, the baby Z9. They want an alternative to the Z9, and not that it means that camera is going to do everything the Z9 does, but they're waiting for that camera. So many people are waiting, money in hand, ready to buy, but they're not going to buy the Z9, and they're not going to buy a Z7 II, and they're not going to buy a Z6 II.
Do they have these same arguments for Fuji?
I don't know, but it doesn't matter. My point is Nikon shooters are saying this, not Fuji shooters. Not Sony shooters.
The thing with Fuji is everybody looks at Fuji in a different genre of photography.
Yeah,
that gives them a pass basically on some of this stuff that Nikon was not going to get a pass on.
What about the heat? Does Sony and Canon get passes on heating, overheating?
They get too many passes on it. Yeah, they don't get beat up on it. I mean, it gets like the casual mention, and then it's kind of like, okay, well, let's not talk about that anymore. Let's talk about the good stuff. It's
for the guy that
Nikon, it's everything, any little thing, whether it be the unlocking the lever is too tight to open up the card slot door on the Z9. It's like, oh, come on. Before it was, the door opens up too easy on its own. I brushed against something. And then it was, the door is too hard to open up. It's like, when are you going to stop? It just gets stupid after a while.
For the photographer that's looking for a good deal right now, like Terry says, the Z7 II image is outstanding.
Right here. Best deal right here.
You know, they're gonna, for the serious photographer, they're gonna overlook all that stuff that they hear.
So do we try to convince the thousands of Nikon shooters out there, hey, quit clamoring for a new camera. The image quality on this camera is fantastic, blah, blah, blah. Is that what we preach? Or do we want Nikon to respond and do something? We can't have both.
I think, Chuck, the challenge, if I may, the challenge has been, and we've hit this 1,000 times over.
Yep.
Who decides what's important? Who decides what's more critical of the 15 items in the world of professional or high quality image making? Who decided that autofocus was the one Mount Olympus issue
The
that determined
consumers.
was good or not? Well, which consumers did that?
Nikon included in all others. I'm sorry, but that's look at the comments, Ron. We convince everybody in here that, hey, quit worrying about autofocus. Is everybody willing to give that up and just shoot with what you got? And you get comments like this. So who's buying the cameras? Nikon's not selling to, the 5 of us or whatever that are satisfied. Okay. They're selling to everybody else. And what does everybody else want? The paying consumer right here. So I know it's frustrating.
I have to pick it because we got to bring balance.
Yeah. No, I understand. But I do agree with you, Ron. I mean, that's the difference. However, right now, Nikon, is the dog that's being kicked around. And I can't convince all the people listening to this right now that they should ignore all that. I want to, but I can't.
Look at what Mazman said.
Let me get it here.
Yeah, well, that's very true, and that's propagated a lot by the Sony camp. That's where that stuff all started. I mean, give me a camera with a split image focusing screen, one place to focus on, and I could give you a great picture.
Okay, and we all agree on that. We all agree on all that. However, if they're obsessing over AF, how do we convince all those people to quit doing that?
Oh, you can't. You can't.
Well, then what are you left with?
You have to match them or surpass them. Otherwise, you're going to go belly up, and it's as simple as that.
Better marketing.
Yeah, marketing.
Yeah. I've been trying to preach to people for the longest time that, let's get out, let's create or whatever. Make great images, make great videos, do what you do. But you know what? You still get all these comments in the chat, and I don't disagree with the chat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an advocate of Nikon. I understand Nikon's not going to put out 3 bodies this year, 3 full frame bodies with all the specs that we talked about and everything we want to see in those bodies. But they need to respond this year with something to show these people and to give some of the people exactly what they're asking for. And right now, the highlight is give me all the tech out of the Z9 in a smaller body. That's all they want. Not to the full capability of the Z9. They just want that body. And Nikon needs to respond to that. And they can take their time on the 100 megapixel or whatever they're going to go to. Yes, we're going to see those cameras here in the near future, from Sony and from Canon and probably Nikon, whether you want to buy it or not. But I would rather they had a lineup large enough to cater to those that want and those that don't want certain specs. That's not going to happen this year. But I mean, is there anybody that disagrees that Nikon needs to respond this year with a camera like the Z9? Look at the sales on the Z7 II and the Z6 II. They have sold some cameras. Why are they liquidating the stock there? Why have the sales gone on and they're even moving the end date back. And some people will say, well, it's just Labor Day sale, this, that, or whatever, Mother's Day, Father's Day. No, Nikon is grabbing all that opportunity to liquidate stock. They even know. This is why I say Nikon is listening. They are hearing us. And Nikon, I'm not saying build them all 3 this year. No, I know that's not possible. But give your loyal body what they're waiting for. And if you watch the chat on the Hoggins live stream, on my live stream, and on so many other places, that's exactly what they're asking for. Give me that camera with the new tech this year.
What do you think about what Roy Bixby just said?
I missed it. I was running my pie hole here.
My old Sony A7.
Yeah.
Well, that may be true, but no one's buying an A7 right now. So it's kind of irrelevant. It may be true, but it's not relevant anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
Well, yeah, I think
if you come out with a D500 plus APS-C and at least announce, if not come out with, but at least announce third quarter the Z8, and you come out with it, worst case, early first quarter of next year, then that's gonna cover an awful lot of ground for an awful lot of people. See, that's what they got to do.
The brilliance of Sony marketing, and it was brilliant, and it has been brilliant, is the way they, and that and there are two things I want to say. The way they targeted a younger generation that was more cell phone based than camera based. That's my assessment. And and boy, they locked in on that. All right. Then on the other side, I heard someone say Nikon needs a Peter McKinnon type. Well, I would think that Nikon has a few Peter McKinnon types, but it does come back down to. But we got to talk about specifics of marketing, because we can keep using that phrase marketing, but there is marketing that's taking place with Nikon. There's a lot of marketing that's taking place with Nikon. But as you would say, Chuck, who, where, when, why, how? That would be, because old man Joe McKnight, we all know he's an amazing legend. Everybody on Sony, Canon, Fuji, everybody knows that man. However, Hagen, Joe's pushing 60, if not over. The 24-year-olds, 25-year-olds don't know who Joe McNally, Joe Smacknally, Joe Decknally is. Okay? We in the photography community do. They need somebody who's relatable, who's like a Drew Gurian, or somebody who's like younger, even younger than Jerry Guiones, who young adults, they love him, but they need someone younger than Jerry, even though Jerry is phenomenal. And, again, all of us in the photo community know what a sensational gift he is to the community. We all know that. But
yes.
There's a 17-year-old guy.
There's the relatable factor that we don't have right now. Go ahead, Vahagan.
I was going to say there's a 17-year-old kid that's doing good.
Yeah, but do you build him up? I mean, that's the only thing you can do. But, we need a personality. It takes character and personality.
Now, Chuck, you're speaking to something that, Jeffrey, I was talking about the specifics. You can't just rely on these ambassadors. There's a guy out of Arkansas by the name of Eric Jackson. Bad, phenomenal, shooting with the D750. He's a phenomenal retoucher. He's working on campaigns for all kinds of people. And you say to yourself, so hold on, Nikon. Here's a 25-year-old, 26-year-old African-American male in Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas, and you're not going to embrace all of that gift, that phenomenal gift, and a number of people are coming to him to retouch, edit stuff. But his work, check him out on Instagram. His work is 750 based, and he's a freak of nature, man.
Well, you could say, why doesn't Nikon get some of their new stuff into the hands of those people, of those creators, of those young creators? Give them a camera. let them be the future ambassadors. Let them give them a platform to show their work, give them some new tools to use, and then show their progress
So
on their website.
Over time,
going.
you can bring these guys up. But Peter
Yeah.
McKinnon didn't start last year. Jared Poland didn't start last year. Tony and Chelsea didn't start last year. So you're absolutely right. Nikon needs to be courting, and I've said that over and over. And I even made a very controversial statement a while back when I said they need to change their ambassadorial pool up considerably. Nothing wrong. You're absolutely right. Joe McNally has name recognition, but he's not relatable to so many younger shooters. Sales are going to the younger shooters as much. Nikon's relied on the older shooters for far too long. But I'm seeing more young people become enthusiastic about Nikon, and that's a good thing. That's why I say I think Nikon finally, there are some tweaks that are going on in Nikon corporate. Somebody said they'll never change because this is just the nature of business in Japan. And I disagree, because I can just go back to the launch of the Z5 or Nikon D5 and the D500, and the difference between the Nikon representatives on the stage and the Canon CEO walking around in just a jacket and an open, shirt, or a shirt unbuttoned at the neck. I mean, the relaxed atmosphere and just the way he looked. Okay, so Canon has already embraced that, and that's obvious with everything that they're doing. So I do think Nikon's doing that. But going back to, you need somebody that has longevity in YouTube, if you can find this person, if they exist, that has a very large base, if that exists, and has character and is relatable to the 20 to 40-year-old generations. That's my opinion. But you can't put old timers up there, because nobody looks at history anymore at all, the history of Nikon or anything else. They only look at what's in front of them on YouTube right now.
I'll tell you something interesting. The other day, I don't know who I was watching. I got like 18 subscriptions of photographers that I follow on YouTube, and growing. But I was watching one of them, and an ad came up, and it was a Canon ad, and it was a Canon ad for the R10, and it was a snappy, fun ad where they show a bunch of young kids walking around, taking pictures with their cell phones, going to the beach, taking pictures with their cell phones, and then one person pulls out the new Canon R10, and they're promoting that camera as, a step up from the cell phone crowd. And and they show someone with a cell phone like they're struggling to get a picture while they got a little fire going on the beach and they can't figure out what to do, and the person gives them their R10. Here, use this.
Nikon did that with
and it was a very good ad, and I'm like,
Nikon did that with the ZFC, but then they let it go. They even had a couple of influencers, YouTube influencers that were up and coming, that they used to market the ZFC and the Z50. But then that ended. It was just, a flash in the pan, and it was gone.
You got to keep doing it. You got to put the ads on social media and YouTube, because, they're not going to pay the ads like in the old days where you'd see Andre Agassi doing Canon videos while he's hitting a tennis ball. So you put the ads on YouTube and you put the ads on social media, but put the ads out there. Get some advertising going.
Or you highlight their channels, which is free advertising. It's minimal cost if you just pick up some of these folks and court them. Here's a question Michael asked. Can anyone on the panel say that the Z7 II was the D850? And if not, why?
My personal experience, the Z7 II was every bit the D850 for what I do. In terms of image quality, in terms of, matter of fact, it superseded the D850 for me it convinced me to get rid of my D850 because the image quality on the Z7 II for award shows, for some of the things that I was doing, a number of things I was doing was great. So, Michael, I would say to you, for me, I believe the Z7 II was every bit, and it took me a while because my D850 was very sacred to me, and I do believe that the Z750, I haven't missed a beat in studio portraiture, corporate branding, all of that work is easier with the 750 than it was with the D850. It's lighter and it's more responsive. So that's why I have never said, I know Chuck feels differently, I believes differently, but for me in my work, the 7 II has always been the D850 in terms of image quality and in terms of experience with corporate portraits and the versatility of the files, the dynamic range of the files, everything was even sharper for me in many instances. And with the Gazebo, it wasn't even, for me, it wasn't close.
And no, I do agree with you. I do agree with you, Ron. However, again, why is this negative? Not just with Michael. I'm not picking on you, Michael, but so many people feel the same way. Why do they feel that way?
Well, I think for the type of photography that you shoot, you're absolutely correct. But you get into what I shoot right there, it ain't no D850.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. And I don't think it was the D850 build quality was something outstanding.
Okay.
With like they say, with the lighted buttons and other things that you had. So, but I think for, like you said, the Z7 II for portrait, weddings, landscape, all that stuff, you got nothing to bellyache about at all. It's perfectly great camera.
So should Nikon start a marketing campaign saying, hey, quit complaining, look at the image quality? Did they even do anything like that?
They're not late now. It's too late now. Those two, the Z6 and C7 brands got beat to death so bad because of AF that it's almost better at this point to just, they are what they are.
So
move forward.
I think that the way to do that is to put this new tech in those bodies with the Z7 III, Z6 III. Now it's not going to happen tomorrow, but yes, you can reverse this wrong, by doing that. We're not going to re-educate the masses. That's what everybody would like to do, me included. But we're not going to do that. We can't do that. It's not it's not a this isn't an opportunity to re-educate people. We've been trying to do that for the longest time. We really have. People are purchasers, and unfortunately, that's what that's what they know what they want, or they think they know what they want, and who am I to convince them differently? And do camera companies respond to that?
I'll say this. I think what we talked about yesterday on the Hawkins channel is so real.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That association with poor autofocus with the Z6 and Z7 II, for some people, it really matters. So Jeffrey, the D850 type body, that size of a body for a Z8 or Z7 III, I don't even think they should do Z6 II or Z7 II anymore. I really think they need to go Z8 or Z something.
But that's my opinion. Is forget about the Z7 II and 3. That's my opinion, and my opinion's worth 2 cents. Do a Z8, make it a little smaller than a D850, a little bigger than a Z7 II. Find a happy medium in there. Load it up with great stuff. Sell it for $3,500, and you're gonna make tons of money.
Yeah, good. I think, but I want to say to everybody who's watching and listening, Chuck, I have absolutely loved my Z7 II.
Mm-hmm.
I've absolutely loved it. My son is doing wonderful videos with the Z6 II, and so because your paying client, just wants quality.
From a professional standpoint, how about hobbyists?
That's a whole different. I don't know. I don't know that world that much.
How much of the market is hobbyists versus professional shooters?
Oh, I think hobbyists is much more.
Yeah, and so that's where the money's at. And if the hobbyists aren't talking about clients are happy with the work no matter what I shoot. And I'm not picking on you at all, Ron. I absolutely respect you and I love your work, but I'm just looking at it from a pure marketing strategy for Nikon. And who am
Yeah.
I to strategize the market for Nikon? But I listen to all the comments and I see, and hear from so many people. I discount the naysayers that are influencers that just want to pick on Nikon. We're not going to convince their viewers of anything different, you know. But when it comes to, again, going back and looking at the comments here and on the Hagen's channel, unfortunately, Nikon has to respond to that. That's where their money is.
Here's a question for Chuck and everybody out there. Was it a mistake for Nikon to trust any bit of their marketing to proven haters of Nikon?
No.
Was it?
Yes, it was a mistake. I'm sorry.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. A certain person that has a little bit more hair than me should never have gotten a Nikon to play with.
And Chuck, I know you want to jump off the table with this one, but let me say this. And for me, I couldn't understand why they didn't why didn't they endorse people like Seth Miranda, Matt Granger, Troy Williams out in California? Why not embrace these cats who've shown themselves to be Nikon lovers? But you give it to the Northrops, you give it to Jared, you give it to
No, they didn't give it to Northrop's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, okay.
That's part of their hate problem is they didn't get it.
Hey, yeah. You know what? Along with that, Ron,
must give it to the people who have actively. See, Manny went out and bought his own.
Yeah.
Fine. But you gave it to somebody. My mama used to say it's one thing for you to throw a rock at me and we're horizontal. It's another thing for you to get on a 15-foot ladder and drop the rock down on my head.
Yeah.
Oh, that's old school South. That's old school New Orleans.
I think that the Nikon just needs to fill in the gap, and they will this year.
Yeah.
They will this year, but then there'll be new things that people will start complaining about, and be ready for that. But with the Z9, man, that's a hit.
So here's a question. Jumping ship over to the APS-C side, who of the influencers is talking about the new APS-C camera coming out? Any of them? Well, we know Tony and Chelsea. Has Jared said anything about the upcoming APS-C camera?
I'm not sure.
I don't watch him much either. So
has Matt Irwin talked about the Z30 or the whatever it's going to be?
He did.
How much?
What? He didn't. Which one? He said he doesn't know exactly what's coming, but he's excited. Yeah. He's looking forward to it. He talked about it like you and Vahagan have talked about it. Matt Irwin did the same.
So those that are talking about it obviously haven't had their hands on this camera. But I'm going to bet you that camera has already been in the hands of Jared Poland. What do you think about that, Ron? Yeah. You know why? Because he hasn't said a word about it. Why? Because he's under NDA. Why would they do that? That's why I brought it up with you, since you brought up that topic. Why would they do that?
See, I mean, somebody said because Seth Miranda, all of them use everybody else's brands. But they don't beat the Hades out of everybody else's stuff.
Yeah.
See, all of them use everybody else's stuff. But the only one who gets kicked, like you say, Chuck, like a dog, is Nikon from these same people. All of them use everybody else's brand. That's Michael Card said because Seth Miranda uses everybody's stuff. But that dude is as pro Nikon as any of us on this panel.
Yeah.
That guy is super pro Nikon.
Who wants to respond to Jonas's comment here?
He's more neutral.
Jonas, we're not picking on you, man, but you came to the wrong place to drop that comment, because there are many reasons why we think he's not neutral at all.
I want what Jonas is smoking.
And I'm not, again, not picking on you, man, but there's many reasons why we can't can't go along with that.
Well, here's a quick example. He contradicts himself from show to show, because when he was doing a comparison at one time between the A1 and the Z9, and it might have been the R3, he made a point of saying, "Oh, the Z9 picks up the eye autofocus on the subject from a much farther distance away," and he was actually complimenting the camera. Mm-hmm. Then if you go and you watch a video that maybe he did a month ago, then he'd be bashing the autofocus system on the Z9. So it's like 1 minute you're saying good things, then you're changing your mind, you're saying something else. There's no consistency to the message. So it kind of invalidates your opinion when you seem to change your mind depending on what way the wind is blowing.
So I can't get inside Nikon's mind, but I can see maybe the idea they had was give it to somebody that will tear it up or whatever, or won't be a fanboy, and just because everybody spots a fanboy right off. And unfortunately, they're not maybe fanboys, or maybe they are, but ambassadors, they're not going to talk about anything that may be, lacking in a camera or a lens that they're reviewing. And I understand that. Don't you, Ron?
Yeah, I get it. I mean, but so are Sony, so are Sony artisans, so are Canon Explorers alike.
Yes,
so
yes.
Are Hasselblad, Leica, so are all of them. But
yes,
but the issue here, the elephant in the room, is the disparity of fairness.
Yes,
lack of fairness in critiques, and that's what Jeffrey has been beating up. That's what Verhagen has been addressing. That's what I've said. That's what John Ishyi's been talking about. You've talked about it. That's what we've been talking about, because nobody talks about, Matt Irwin, Matt Granger, all of them. Matt Granger even did a video that showed how the Z9 autofocus was far superior to the R3 in Canon. But nobody about that. That gets swept under the rug. They don't talk about the overheating issues. They don't talk about things that matter also, that are just as important as autofocus. That's the issue we're dealing with, the disparity of equal bashing.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's been the mantra for me, Verhagen, so many other people for so long. That's where I started initially. I wish I'd kept all the videos I did make back 3 years ago, or almost 4 years ago, when the Z7 came out, because it just drove me crazy. And I did my video rants, but I got rid of most of those about the disparity in, presenting an unbiased or fair opinion when it comes to reviewing Nikon and Canon and Sony, because they were on a tear then. And I don't know if you guys remember, but Jared Poland right out the gate with the Z7. Well, it's a toy lens, talking about the lenses. It's a toy lens. It's no good. I don't like this. I don't like that. It's one card slot, blah, blah, blah. All those things that you bring up. But when they flipped the coin, and then because Canon dropped the 28 to 70 f2, so that made up for all their other misgivings in their camera body. But they didn't harp on, all those things. And I'm not saying that Canon was bad, or that Sony was bad, or Nikon was bad. But the point is that they use Nikon as a tool for views, my opinion. That's the only reason I can see them going down the path they did. And so many people did. Tony and Chelsea definitely did it. And Jared did it, whether anybody wants to believe it or not. He did it. So, why do you send a camera to get tore apart when look at their MO? Look at their MO. Look at historically what they've said, and tell me that you expect a fair review from, Jared Poland when it comes to Nikon. Yes, he will pick on Canon and Sony a little bit, but my point is my point is that Nikon becomes the dog to kick around in the room.
So I got a question for you guys. What do they pick on the most when it comes to Nikon? What feature?
autofocus only. Only.
All right. So
I
I
don't
got
hear
to.
Well, they'll complain about the size and weight too.
So wow.
the
So I
Z7
got
too.
to.
No, if you're talking, they'll say no. Like if a Z9, they'd say, well, Sony A1 is so much lighter and smaller. They'll use that as part of their marketing attacks.
So
as well.
So I want a question for Ron. You're working pro. You work. You're doing all these events. You have autofocus issues?
Thank you. I'm so glad you asked. I want to say this for everybody in the back of the church. On the back of the bus. No. When I do, it is user error. My wrong settings. My wrong color. My wrong aperture. My wrong shutter speed. My wrong ISO. The camera only does what I tell it to do. Chuck, you and I had this conversation when I was out shooting NAM.
Yep.
I was like, this is a cheat code. When I was shooting
Exactly.
when I was shooting at the beach the other day in Dana Point, I was like, this is not fair. This makes photography like Jeff. It's like all those years of learning. I don't need nothing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you feel like anybody can do it now when you hold that camera.
So to answer your question, no, I don't have problems, man. I'm sorry, that was my son. I don't have problems.
So that means that we need a whole new set of heroes when it comes to YouTube watchers. When it comes to the YouTube thing, we need a whole new set of heroes, or wrong word, influencers, or real pros in there showing what they actually do when they go out there and do it, not just talk about it.
I'm laughing at what Michael Darman.
Yeah.
So you know what those guys, the Tony and Chelsea's, the Poland's, those guys they don't shoot. They shoot for their channels. Shooting for your channel and shooting for your photography is two different things. So
We're about to put some new pictures up on my website and put a few up on my to answer Bahagin's question on my social media of a girl by the name of Lauren Daigle and CC Winans.
Oh, I know CC Winans.
Okay, so I haven't had a chance to because I've been with projects,
Mm-hmm.
but about that stuff, and I'm like, this is crazy. Oh my gosh, Nikon, you do need to get this in a smaller body. You do. Yeah. And so I said, Chuck, this will only frustrate you because I'm convinced, Jeff, they put this in a Z8 type. It's a wrap, man.
I agree with you. And I think it's how
My book, the Z9 is already a wrap. But this is crazy.
They put this in the Z8. It's a wrap. They put it in the Z6 III. It's a wrap, and the Z6 III, Z7 III.
Yeah, it's a
and
wrap.
all right, the Z5 guys out there too, and we're good. We're good for 4 or 5 years.
So then, instead of defending what the Z7 is and the Z6 is, why wouldn't we promote Nikon or promote Nikon in what's coming? Again, the Z8. If you think the Z9 was hard to get a hold of, I got news for you. When they announce the Z8, you better find some place that you can get a pre-order in or something, because that camera is going to be almost impossible to get for a while.
Call your dealer right now and say, put me on a list whenever the list is possible to be made up. Put my name on it.
If everybody in the chat raised their hand that's waiting for that camera, I guarantee you. I mean, we have 51 people in here right now watching. I'd love to see 500 in here watching, and so they understand that there are people like us that are talking about these things out here. But I bet you that you'll get almost all 50 or so people to raise their hand. Everybody's waiting on that camera, because not everybody bought a Z9, just like not everybody bought a D6 or a D5 or a D4 or a D3.
Yeah,
people.
You're right. You're right.
And
You're right. You're right. Because I'm looking at what Michael, what's his name? Michael McDermott said about Ron's right. Michael McDiarmid. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Let me try to find it.
Yeah, because the truth of the matter is, my wife said to me, "So let me ask you a question, baby. The D5 and the D4S were concerts. We were having fun with that." Yes, ma'am. And they said, so she said, so do we need the Z9? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, why do we need the Z9? I said, because I want the Z9. I was creating the same images for Hagrid, Chuck. I was creating the same images with the D5 and D4S. I was, and a D850. The D850, it was just too slow for the coming from a D5. The D850 was way too slow for what I could. I made it work, but the D5 was such organic, natural thing to use.
I agree with you. And people would ask me about that because I had the D850 and the D5, and the D5 was a workhorse, no doubt about it.
Not even,
everybody would say the D850 is just as good and everything, blah, blah, blah. No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Not even close.
No. And that's why the flagships are the flagships. Yep.
I'm sorry for the chat, but no, the D5 and D850, it was light years apart.
So people will argue that point based on what they shoot, though, Ron. They don't understand that there's more than they shoot, and I understand that. A landscape photographer, the D850 is the cat's meow, man. That camera is fantastic. Even for, weddings, a lot of people shot, but a lot of wedding photographers didn't like it because they didn't want 45 megapixel. They wanted like the D750 was so popular with so many wedding photographers. So my point is that people will argue from the point of their use, not looking at everything in toto, but the D5 outshined the 850 in a bunch of ways. And I shot both, shooting motocross, by the way. And I can tell you that the D5 was the camera that I shot more than anything because of the speed, the autofocus in it, and everything else. So yeah.
What he talks about the lights.
Yeah, look at everybody. I'll buy a Z8. I'll buy a Z8. Yeah, I think a lot of people are waiting on that. And folks, I'm just telling you right now, you need to actually start looking now at how you might get your hands on a Z8. And I know it sounds crazy because it's the mythical camera right now. I get that. But you need to start looking at how you get your hands on one right now. That's what I did with the Z9. It's what I did with the D5. And maybe this is why buying from smaller shops is the way to go. I'm just throw this out as a public announcement. This is why going to smaller shops is so much better for you. If you want to get in the queue at B&H when the link goes live, you're already 500 cameras behind. All right. And you don't complain because you can't get your camera for months on end. I love B&H. I buy a lot of things from B&H, but the two things I don't typically buy are high demand items from B&H. I have my own store that I go to. I've built a relationship with them, bought several cameras, and that's what you guys should look at as well as an opportunity to get it and start talking about it. Let the stores know I already have, and they laugh at me. Okay, that's fine. But guess what? They laughed at me with the Z9, and I got a Z9, not NPS member, early on. So my point is that if you want it, you got to work for it. And I don't mean for the money. I'm talking work to purchase the camera, and now's the time to start strategizing. Love that word. And how you're going to get it.
That's because you're a military guy, Chuck. You got to say strategize
absolutely.
a lot.
I second what Chuck is saying because I have tried Adorama B&H for years, guys, and I've I should buy stock in the place. I've spent so much money there, but that high demand camera, I have never, ever had success with getting it early if I depended on them. I had to use yes status for all my Nikon gear to get stuff, or a relationship with a store, a smaller shop that has a great relationship with NPS. I've had to do either NPS or a great a smaller store that has great relationship, and that's how
Yep.
I've always got within a month, within 4 weeks after it's announced, or at the most 6 weeks later. I've never had to wait more than 5, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
High demand camera body.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey,
here's one-
Vahagan, I see you chomping at the bit, and I want to turn you loose here. But let me say hello to Milorad Kravidin. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, from China. Hey, thank you for joining us. And here's my other public service announcement, or for me announcement. Just like Jared Poland, I look for clicks too. Ha ha ha. But I want more people in the community because I love these discussions and I love what you guys have to say. So if you're not a subscriber, I would ask you to subscribe to the channel if you like that. And for you, Milorad, just so you know, I also do a Saturday night live stream, which would be daytime for you, Sunday. You may want to check that out. But if you subscribe to the channel, you're going to get all the notifications. And I would say check the bell so you get the notifications. I don't throw a bunch of junk up, so you don't have to worry about getting bombarded. You're only going to see the live streams come up in your notifications. So anybody else out there, I'd appreciate it. And not just me, but now let me throw a plug in here for Vahagan. Vahagan's channel. He's doing a live stream just like this. He does it every Tuesday. And we're eventually we'll have Mr. Jeff up here, Jeffrey Neville. He has a YouTube channel. It's gosh, Jeffrey, what happened to me here? What your channel?
Selective imagery.
Selective imagery. Why I lost that, I don't know. But anyway, folks, check everybody out. Check their channel out. If you like it, subscribe. And for those that are in here right now, if you like the conversation today, please drop a like. It motivates me to keep moving forward, and I love the discussions. All right. That said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Vahagan because I know he had something he wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the other day I was shooting and I was looking at the top screen on the Z9, and it's so helpful for me. You know, I really like that screen. In broad daylight, it's crystal clear. You see everything. You know, love the Sony too, but the Sony doesn't have that. Sony doesn't have that top screen that shows your shutter speed, your ISO, and all that. These little things that people don't bring up. You know, it's like the battery life on the Nikon Z9. The battery life is excellent. Excellent. When I'm out on the road, when I'm shooting a gig, that if I'm doing stills, that battery life lasts me the whole day. I don't need to change. I don't mess with batteries. Okay, I don't have to worry about it. One wedding, beginning to end, it covers it, no problem. Those little things that might be a problem when you're shooting out, you know, running and gunning, you don't want to worry about, you know, that kind of things. But people don't bring that up. As a working guys, we see that. We see what we need out there. And that Z9 just fits like a glove in my hand. And I love it. I love the balance. And people don't talk about the balance from camera to lens. It balances so well in the hand. It feels nice.
And that's what they want to see in the next camera body is everything you're talking about. You're absolutely right. I think the Nikon has sold itself on its specs and capabilities other than the naysayers, but
I have to say, though, I ain't gonna lie. I love my 6272, but after using the Z9, not because of autofocus, but because of the ergonomics, as you just described, Vahagan. Chuck, I told you, man, I would buy the G8 just because it's a little beefier, and I like that full frame. I'm with Vahagan. I just want to say, brother, amen. For those in the back of the bus, I want them to hear what you just. I agree with you, because it's hard to go back. And I need two camera bodies because you need a backup. You need backups. But it's a whole different. It's a holy grail, as Jason Boland likes to say. It's the holy grail, man. It really is.
Well, I think a big thing with a larger body too is I would rather have I'd rather have the larger body, have a few extra buttons on the camera that I can program for what I want, rather than having to do a lot of menu diving all the time. So I would rather sacrifice and have a slightly larger body to have a few extra buttons. It makes my life easier for what I do.
Yeah. And it's no one talks about those little things that the Z9 has that the other cameras don't. Not to discredit Canon's R3 and Sony A1s. They both do a great job. Those are great cameras. Look, if I had Canon lenses right now, I would not buy a Z9. Honestly, because the R3s, what was that?
Same here. Same here. I'd be all in the camera system.
If I had Canons, there was no need for me to buy a Z9. But I probably would, just to see, because you know me, I like to see what's up. And I might get a Canon. We'll see. But they all do a good job. They all do a good job. But the Z9 does things that I like. I so happen to be a Nikon shooter, and I'm happy right now. So,
what other camera survive a drop in the mud, Chuck? I don't know about the mud, but I was in LA about 4.5 months ago, the first time of the year. I was working on a movie set. I accidentally dropped my Z9 from my waist and it hit the concrete. I almost had a baby. Picked it up, looked at it, didn't have one dent, one scratch on the 70-200 or the Z9. Didn't miss a beat. So the build quality, to answer that brother's question, is sensational.
It is. But let me take what I said back, because the R3 has, what is it, 20 some megapixel?
Yeah, it's a 24-ish range, something like that.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll use an R5 if I had like 20 Canon lenses and I was invested in Canon. But there's nothing wrong with switching brands. If you see that the color science is more to your liking, if you see that you like the files right out of the box, even Jared Poland says this all the time. He says, I like the Nikon files out of the camera. But then he goes on to bash Nikon.
That's why he says he's unbiased, because he gives it a compliment and takes it away with a criticism. It's a beautiful camera, but it sucks. It's really rugged, but it doesn't do what I want it to do. I mean, it's just, come on, man, stick to one plan.
Hey, even video on the Nikons, like even the Z6, like you put that video on a picture profile. Like I use NL all the time. And NL, right out of the camera, you don't even need to grade the video. It's like ready to go, ready to just edit. I'm serious. Out of the camera, the video files look great as well. So
I like the question you had up that's not there anymore, that J-Rod Photo Art wrote, was if you're making money with a D850, what is the drive to move to a Z replacement? The lenses. Well, I've got both cameras, and for me, the main thing, and I'm a generalist, although I lean heavy on birding right now, but I do shoot trains and other things. To me, the big thing, the Z lenses are better. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the other thing is, you've got your autofocusing is better. Your 3D tracking on the 850 wasn't very good. It's a lot better on the Z9. If you're doing sports or car races and motocross and birding, the Z9 is going to be better. So it all depends on what your genre is that you're shooting with. In some cases, the D850 might be all you need for a long time, but there are some definite benefits to going to the Z brand.
I can't speak to your question because I'm not a pro, or I'm not a working photographer. So, I'm going to say want, just pure want. I want a Z. I have a D850 and I still want Z cameras, even though I'll probably give my D850 up here before long. But going back to the question I asked Ron earlier, how many hobbyists are out here in shooting Nikon? And I have to believe that there are more hobbyists than there are pros, and pros have to justify their purchase because it has to fit into their financial plan with what they're doing, meaning it has to pay for itself because that's just doing good business. And not saying that these cameras don't pay for themselves, but my point is hobbyists have cash to spend for no other reason than they want a camera. Now, who you got to cater to the pros, absolutely, but don't ever think that it's all about the pros. And Nikon knows that. They make an appearance that they're all about pros or whatever. But in the last few statements we've seen from Nikon, they recognize the large hobbyist population that they have.
Mhm.
And guess what? There are more cameras probably sold to hobbyists, not high-end cameras necessarily. However, I'll guarantee you everybody over on the Facebook Z9 page, the pro page, are not working pros. They may even have found a way to become an NPS member, but they're not total working pros like this man sitting in front of us here, Mr. Ron Pollard. This is how he earns his living. This is what pays the bills. And he's a real pro when it comes to it. Or Mr. Vahagan over here, who's a wedding photographer. This is how he earns his living and pays his bills. Should they be catered to by a manufacturer or Nikon? Yes, they should. But don't limit it to it's all about, trying to make a statement that, well, if your camera that you have right now isn't going to earn any more money, then you don't need another camera or whatever. And I know that's not exactly what you meant, James. I just wanted to make a point here that we hobbyists spend as much money as pros do on camera equipment. And that's why Nikon has begun to listen to the hobbyists out here. All right. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to make that point.
And more.
Well, like if you're pulling focus on video, yeah, that's fine. But if you're doing video, you need the Z system is better. Lenses are better, sharper.
Less focus breathing.
You can see what you're actually getting when you're shooting. Right away with the mirrorless camera. Yeah, I mean, and plus you see what's on the other side and you want it. It's like, what are you missing with the DSLRs? I have both. I use both, but yeah.
I was planning to shoot an event Saturday night. I'm not going to now, only because of my COVID situation. It's probably not the best thing to do, and I don't think that they would care for me running around in a large audience, no matter how long it's been since I had it. But anyway, I had planned to carry the D850 because I don't have the new 70-200 S lens. But I was going to carry the D850 with the 70-200 on it. Yes, I know it's a capable camera, but I'm just ready to move into all mirrorless, and that's going to happen before long.
Yeah, and like I said, you can't go wrong with any. You know what? When Nikon brings out a product, they bring out a good product.
Yes,
I never had lenses that fail. I never had bodies. I never even had service needs for all my bodies that I've had. Never once did these cameras break on me, stop working, overheat, nothing. And when they bring out something, they bring out a good product.
The most I've ever done, Vahagan, my cameras broke, or lenses broke because I dropped them.
Yeah.
Or not able, but that was me. The machinery, the mechanical phase and stuff, I haven't experienced that.
Yeah.
There's a guy in Torrance, Dean's Camera Repair, that I go to, that I would send my stuff to from all over the country, because that dude is incredible. I would go into his shop in Torrance, man, and he trained a lot of the Nikon and Canon repairmen across the country. He did a lot of training for many, like 25 years. And I'd go to him over in Torrance. If I had a focusing issue, or I had anything on my DSLRs, Dean's Camera Repair was phenomenal. I don't mean to shout him out like that, but I have to give him credit. He was
absolutely. Give credit where credit's due, and other people may want to know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've dropped lenses; they're fine. Canon has a history of stripping the If you drop a Canon lens with the body on it, Canon has this thing where the lens breaks, but the mount is still attached to the mount. If you know what I'm talking about, the mount is still stuck on the camera.
Oh, it's like what they do with cars. You got the crumple zone. You got the crumple zone.
Yeah, my second photographer once dropped his Canon. He was shooting a 5D Mark IV, and he had the 16 to 35 on there, and he dropped it because he was just, his fault. Anyway, dropped it. The same thing happens. It's the mount is stuck on the lens, the barrel, and the whole night he was giving me crap. Like, man, I broke my lens, man. I'm like, man, what do you want me to do? Pay for it? It's your fault. You don't have insurance?
Photo me Ike in.
That's a question there. Vahagen, and do you guys have insurance on all your gear for mishaps like that, or do you just kind of take your chances?
I have two.
Depends. I do some of the gear.
As a pro shooter, you have liability insurance as well, don't you? Yeah.
It's pretty much all covered.
I have the PPA, what PPA offers, and I have insurance with State Farm policy too.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I've recommended, and here I'm a person that just relies on the homeowner's policy, which doesn't do me any good beyond the home, really. But I don't know if I can afford insurance for all the junk I've got. I'd have to just pick and choose what I'm going to actually insure. But I think it's important. Everybody should have it.
Well, it's funny. I gave a list of all the camera gear I had. Now, this was before I got the Z9 and some Z lenses too. I gave them a list of what I had because the homeowner's policy only had a certain, dollar amount coverage. So they said, well, we got to write a separate rider on your policy for your camera stuff. So I gave them a list of everything. Now, this was over 6 months ago. And they said, yeah, we got the list. We're going through it. And you know what? I never got a phone call back. I never got a quote. Haven't heard a thing.
I'll tell you what, for those that are shooting and you're just doing side jobs, you're not a full-time working pro or whatever, and you think that you can skate by, I would suggest you look at liability insurance, because it only takes one time out there, somebody getting hurt in the middle of a photo shoot. It doesn't matter how they get hurt. The insurance companies for them are going to turn it around, and it's going to be your fault. I'm just saying that it may cost a little bit of money, but it's going to save your livelihood down the road. Because guess what? Whether you're a working pro or not, you're out doing a shoot with somebody and they get hurt, you're going to be responsible, because that's what they were there to do, was to whatever with you. All right.
So tell Mazman, yes, sir. Thank you, Mazman. He is legit. I've gone to him for like the last, I lived in California. I live here now 15 years, brother. Yeah. 15, 20 years. He's amazing, man. I've taken so much stuff to him. Yeah.
TCP Insurance, great company. Sith Sense.
81. Okay.
I got a question for Ron. Hey, Ron, when you go out and shoot, do you take an assistant?
Depends on what I'm doing. My son usually goes with me quite a bit because he knows what I want, what I need.
Do you have all your gear with you at all times, or do you?
No, it depends on. When I came out to Los Angeles, I have a lot of pro photo lighting gear. I brought 2 modifiers, 2 flashes, A1, A10X, A1X, something like that, and 2 or 3 modifiers with me, and some gels, CTO gels, colored gels. The lenses I bring with me, except the 200 f2, because that's just 7 pounds. That's just 7 pounds of goodness I don't need to bring out. And but pretty much all my all of my Z lenses pretty much, yeah. I mean, did I answer your question?
Some of these guys, like some of my second shooters, I always tell them, you know what, watch out where your bag is, because some of them are newer. They don't know, you know what I mean? You don't know what banquet hall you're shooting at. You leave the bag like on the stage or something. You don't know who, somebody might steal it. There was one time somebody stole my second shooter's bag, and he was gone. All his camera equipment was stolen. And we were having dinner. So sometimes when you at weddings, when you have dinner, the where we eat is somewhere else, like it's in another room.
Yeah.
And then they stole his stuff. I always keep my bag. If I'm going upstairs somewhere to eat, I always take my bag with me.
Absolutely.
But he just left it on the stage. So they
In,
stole it.
In Anaheim, I'm sorry, go ahead on. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say they stole his stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and the venue had camera system.
Mm-hmm.
So the next day he comes back, they watch the camera, and it was one of the waiters that stole his camera bag. So
Wow.
they were able to track him down and get it all back. And he got fired.
I in most venues, not all, but most, about 95% of venues I go to, they will have someone who's specific to help me. They will have someone who's specific to help me with my, me and my assistant with my gear, or they'll have a space that's specific for what we're doing. And they'll have a person or two in that room just specifically for that, just to watch out stuff. They pay them to do that, depending on where it is. But I still do like you. I take most of my stuff with me. I don't care. Anybody short of Jesus Christ, I'm keeping it with me. No, for real. Really, man. The only person I trust with it is my wife or my son. When we shot our weddings in New York earlier this year, my wife is golden because, she's like a mama bear and nothing. Ain't nobody going to breathe on it. So I'm good on that. And then my son, he's a hawk too, man. So Jeff, he was on top of it, Jeff. So no problem with that.
Yeah, if I bring extra stuff, I got a backpack, camera bag, it's on my back, and that's it. I don't take it off.
I'll go this far, Jeff, to agree with you. If depending on the hotel I'm at, Vahagan, I'll call the hotel and tell the hotel what I'm doing while we're there, and they'll give me some additional attention or help, depending on the hotel I go to. Yeah, Marriott's been really good to work with on that. Marriott's been good to go. When you guys fly, I got a question for y'all. When y'all fly, do you guys get separated from your gear?
No, I check it in. It's carry on.
Yes.
Except tripods and stands. I don't care about that.
I could care on that. As a matter of fact, I have those all over the country. I have those with different people throughout California, Georgia, South Carolina. I have tri-span. I have those little $40, $50 tripod. I mean, little stands. Jeff, I have those at different locations across the country, so I could care less about that.
Because the thing is that with these weddings and events, you don't know who's there. You don't know. There's so many people coming in and out.
Right.
You don't know. You know what I mean? And some of these guys are under. Some of these guys that are underpaid.
Right.
And they go, shit. You know what I mean? I'll take this and I'll sell it on eBay.
Yeah.
And there was this guy that would stalk photographers, because he knew the photographers' cars. And there's this location where usually, like in my market, there's this park that a lot of photographers hit up during the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
That's known to a lot of people. So he would stalk some of us. He would know the cars we're driving in, and we'd know we're there for an hour taking park pictures at an event, wedding. And he would break windows, take cameras, lenses, and it was a whole thing. You know what I mean?
Mozman mentioned the AirTag thing. That helps, but I hear that Apple is going to be updating that because people have been using that to track people and do other things with them. You know, I mean, people are nefarious, man. It's unbelievable to see how mean and manipulative and nasty people can be, how they'll misuse the air tag.
Trying to find out if their spouse is cheating on them. Well, you know what? You come out with a good idea, and then it always ends up getting used for something that it wasn't intended to do.
So, but that's what I do, Vahagan. I mean, how much gear do you take with you when you travel, man, Vahagan? How many camera bodies? You too, Jeffrey. How many camera bodies do you guys take when you travel with you?
2 bodies, sometimes 3, but 2 bodies minimum, and maybe 4 or 5 lenses. It depends. Like if I'm going somewhere where I need a longer lens, I might take a super telephoto with me. But no, the 7200, 2470, one super wide lens, an 85, and a macro.
Okay. How about you, Jeffrey?
Well, I haven't traveled much in a while, but when I did, it would be 2 bodies, and then the lenses. It would depend on what my subject matter was going to be. If I was going to focus on landscapes, I might just bring I'd bring a ultra wide angle, a 24-70, maybe bring a macro lens, and bring a 70-200. If I was going to do birding as well, then I'd have to bring another longer lens, bring my 500 PF or something like that. But I kind of customize what I bring depending on what I'm going there to take pictures of. But it's usually still going to be at least 4 lenses and 2 bodies.
Gotcha. How about you, Chuck? When you travel, what do you take with you when you travel, Chuck?
Chuck's got 75 bodies, about 200 lenses.
Chuck's muted.
Chuck, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. I carry everything, Ron. I'm ridiculous. It's an Army thing. It's better to have and not need than to need and not have. I live by that mantra. Not that I should, but that's just me. It's overkill, no doubt about it.
Hey, but you know what? If I'm going on vacation, right, and I want to just take like a mirrorless, I'll probably just take like a 24-120. One lens.
I want that lens so bad.
So when I was traveling back and forth to Salt Lake City, all those years that I was doing that, even though I probably wouldn't get a chance to actually shoot, I carried 2 bags full of camera equipment. That's how ridiculous I am.
You'll always know it's Chuck because he'll have a donkey behind him with like bags of camera gear hanging off the donkey.
Yep. And everybody out there would ask me, why do you bring all that if you don't use it? Well, I don't know. Because I can. Because I'm crazy. Hey, I want to go back to one thing. I want to do a question and answer here real quick with you guys and watch the audience. And before I do that, hey, all the Fuji shooters over here that have linked up. See, that's another reason to be in here, man. I don't care what you shoot. Bring it to the table. We can talk about it as well. But I'm really happy to see the conversation on Fuji going on over there. If that's what you shoot, then good on you. And I see Grays Westminster just dropped a Nikon Z30 and Z400 4.5 lens announced at the end of June. D3500, D5600, no more. Nikon report. So Grays Westminster just dropped a video. So we'll have to check that out after the fact. So let's get to the question and answer. Z8. Let's just assume right now the Z8 is real. It's in development. Z8, and we have the Z6 III and the Z7 III in development. Not that they're going to be announced anytime soon, but I'm going to ask a question, and you guys get to respond yes or no, or just a short answer explaining why yes or no. Shutterless or with shutter? This is for all 3 bodies. You can choose which ones you think will or won't have.
Anything for $3,000 shutterless.
Okay.
Yeah, I want the Z8 to not have mechanical because I love the Z9.
Okay. Ron?
I think that this the shutterless is the wave of the future. I think that Nikon has created Godzilla, and Godzilla's here to stay.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think shutterless all the way across the line. I don't know what it costs or doesn't, is it cost prohibitive to be shutterless, or does it cost more to add a shutter? I don't know. So we have to weigh just whether it makes a difference in how you shoot and how the camera performs. And I don't have a desire either way, but I'd like to see shutterless from this point forward. All right. That said, and I'm seeing people already beginning to, Roy says shutterless is still having tethering problems. Okay. And that's what I was talking about. There may be reasons to have or not have. Okay. Next question. AF. Identical to the Z9 or some form of the Z9 AF for those three bodies? Yes or no?
Oh, of course. 100%.
Jeffrey?
I think on a Z8, it has to be the same exact thing. I think if it's a very low end model, maybe you can dumb it down a little bit because of the cost factor, but it would be great if you made them all the same, because that's the argument that Sony has, is that their AF is basically identical no matter what model you buy.
Right. Yep. Okay. And I agree. I don't think it costs any more for the newer AF. Maybe it doesn't have some of the tracking features. It's not a laundry list like you have in the Z9, but for the most part, the AF tech out of the Z9 gets trickled down into all three of those bodies. That would be my guess, my desire.
Hey, Chuck.
Yes, sir.
Chuck, I got to call a client real quick.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm going to bow out for a sec.
All right, buddy. Hey, good
All
to
right.
see you in here. If we're still going, rejoin us afterwards.
Sounds good. Hey, guys. Nice
Okay.
seeing you, Jeff, Ron, Chuck, everybody.
Take
All
it
right.
easy.
Well,
Take
all
care,
right.
brother.
Do
All
good.
Okay.
Did we lose
EVF.
Ron? Because I didn't hear.
No, I think Ron's he's doing something, so he just muted the camera.
Okay.
I think he's still in here. Okay. EVF and LCD screen, better performance than the Z9 or a lower performance than the Z9?
Z8 better. Anything below that, the same.
Okay. All right. So a lot of people are going to complain. I agree with you. I see it across the board again, but people are going to complain, say that it will eat into the flagship sales. No, I think the flagship is sold what it's going to sell, and people are going to buy it for other reasons other than just the EVF and the LCD screen on the back. So I think it needs to be that technology's out there, and Nikon needs to embrace it and put it in the cameras that are coming out below the Z9. And I don't think it costs any more for that. So hopefully we'll see better LCD. I love the EVF in the Z9 right now, especially with this XP7 processor, which brings me to my next. Well, before that, Ron, did you get that last question?
No, I had a technician come to the door, so but I'm
Okay.
back.
Okay. So EVF and LCD screen back panel on the Z8, Z7 III, and Z6 III, better than the Z9 or the same or less than the Z9?
No less, no less. I think it has to at least match what the Z9 is doing, if not better. I think they're going to increase the quality of the EVF just because they can. But with that 3,000 extra nits light in the Z9, Jeff, you have a Z9, correct?
Correct.
And Chuck, have you guys found that Z9, the EVF?
I think it's fantastic.
I have no issues with it either. I love it.
Incredible. I mean, incredible. And then now we can go to 120 with it.
120 refresh rate. Yeah.
I don't
I
think
think
any other people.
so. I think that there's a lot of technology left on the table, and Nikon can embrace that for the LCD, no doubt about it. But I do believe that they will put that new technology and raise the pixel count on the LCD on the back of the camera. I don't think they need to hold that back because the Z9 doesn't have the highest pixel count for the LCD. That's my opinion.
And I agree with you. And Mosman, I'll say this too. I looked at the EVF on the Z9 compared to the R3 a few weeks ago. Z9 was just as amazing as the R3 EVF. So I was trying to figure out what the problem is. I couldn't figure.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
part of it's the lenses that Nikon puts in there to go along with the EVF, and rather than just the EVF. I mean, you got to look, the whole package they put together makes it so it can compete with those that are 5 million megapixel, the 5 million dot ones or the 9 million dot ones, and it's just as good.
so. Again, the reason I'm asking these questions is because, again, if Nikon's watching, they're looking at what you guys say in the chat, not just what we're saying, but what you guys are saying in the chat, so they get a better feel for what the consumer's looking for, the Nikon consumer's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And James, you already beat me to the punch. Flippy screen or the current articulating screen on the Z9?
On the Z8, the screen. On the
Did
Z8,
you hear my sigh?
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
on the Z8 or the Z6 or 7.3, the flippy screen. I think you got to offer that in one of these just for the community. I don't think the Z9 II, the Z10 needs it. I don't miss it on the Z9, but on a smaller camera body, I could see why the flippy screen would make a difference. But on a flagship body, I'm so good, man, without it. But I do think they need to have it, Jeff. I do. Taking one of the
Well, I think you put it, if you keep the Z6 and Z7s around, and you make, as Chuck has alluded to, make the Z6 III a video centric camera, then put the flippy screen on that one. But on the Z8, I wouldn't want it on the Z8 myself. I would rather have what I have on the Z9.
Okay.
And I agree with you, Ron. I agree with you also, Jeff. Based on my, thrown together specs of what I think the cameras should be, considering that the Z6 III would be a video-centric camera, I think it makes absolute sense for that camera. And also even for the very high megapixel Z7 III, I think it makes sense there. But I like the ruggedness, and it articulates enough for me. The Z9 screen does that. I'd like to see that same thing carried over in a Z8. So I'm with you, Ron. Okay. Go ahead.
Going out of business, okay?
Huh?
Now that we know Nikon's not going out of business.
That's right. Oh man.
I don't know. Someone will start that rumor with all the extended sales on their products. They'll say, see, they're trying to get rid of everything before they go under.
And again, hopefully Nikon's listening, because you guys are providing comments over here as to what you think. And, wouldn't it be great if we all got what we wanted here?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Frames per second. The Z9 does 130 at 11 megapixel JPEG, or 120, I'm sorry, at 11 megapixel JPEG only. It does, I know it does 20 frames per second in RAW.
Full RAW. Uh-huh.
Yeah, full RAW.
And
So
30 JPEG, 30 frames JPEG.
Yeah, 30 frames per second, full JPEG.
Full JPEG, yeah.
Full res JPEG.
And all
okay.
of 14-bit color depth.
Yes. Okay. So now for the Z8, Z7 III, Z6 III, what do you think? Or what do you want to see? Not what you think. What do you want to see?
I think it should be I think you have to do something here for a cost reason mostly. If you got to get the Z8 down to 3,500, it won't be the same. I mean, but I think you got to still have to have the 20 frames per second, the 20 and 30, but get rid of the 120 feature. You got to get rid of something to dumb it down from the Z9 a little bit.
Okay.
I think you got to have, if you're going to do the Z8 at 8K, I think it's got to be an 8K that won't overheat.
Right.
Where that is, I'm not sure because I'm not the greatest video guy. That would be
Right.
nice. But between 15 and 20 frames a second is more than enough
Okay.
But I would say 15 to 20 frames, somewhere 15 frames a second, but also 8K.
Okay, we'll get to video in just a minute, but on the stills side.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I personally I think it needs to do quite a bit of what the Z9 does, the Z8 that is. And I don't think 20 frames per second is too much to ask, because I have another question. It really should have been before this one about the Xpeed 7 processor. But anyway, if Nikon were to go with the plan of the Z7 III being a, monster megapixel camera, whatever that turns out to be, then I don't think frames per second there is a big deal. So that could be 8 to 10, in my opinion, for the Z7. For the Z6 III, I think it needs to be, closer to the 15 to 20, because it will be the kind of a video centric, but still all rounder of a camera. That would be for somebody to get into, that wants to get into the video side more so than stills, still be a great stills camera. So that would be my thoughts on the three cameras as far as frames per second and stills capability. So Xpeed 7 processor.
Easily, yes. Easily, yes.
Yeah, I think it's got to be across the board.
I agree.
The Xpeed 6 out alone now.
Yeah,
I agree with you. The only reason I can see Xpeed 6 is if Nikon has a barn load full of them and they need to use them somewhere, but that could be an APS-C that we're going to see. This APS-C camera that comes out, depending on what it is, but if it is we say D500 mirrorless, but I think it would be actually a little bit better than the D500 with all the new tech. But anyway, if it has a Xpeed 7 processor in it, then I think you can expect to see that in all the full frame bodies above it.
Now, they may say Xpeed 6 II. They might do something like that.
Nikon may have an Xpeed 8 by then. You're absolutely right. I would expect them to hold that until the next flagship upgrade. I don't know, but that is a possibility, Roy, if they have that.
That'd be a Z9 II thing.
Yeah.
My husband said it should be a necklace.
Go ahead.
But I could see them playing games, but Xpeed 6 should be put into a necklace. Oh my God. So creative, man.
We put Xpeed 6 on it with Nikon making a necklace. So video, where should these cameras fall in the video arena?
Go ahead on that, man.
Z8, I think, once again, you have to dumb it down from the Z9. I think at a minimum, over 6K, oversampled 4K, ProRes, RAW, put that stuff in it if you can. 10-bit, mandatory, 10-bit. And then you maybe could dumb it down a little more for the lower end models. But I think for the Z8, I don't think you're gonna if they did 8K, it would just be 8K 30. But I don't know that they'll do that. I mean, because right now I think the Canon, I forget what model it is, but the model that would probably be the Z8 competitor is I think 6.3K over sampled 4K. So I think you have to at least match that.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think that it's actually the R5. It falls into that category because that's what's going to fall under the R3 and R1 whenever the R1 is announced as the, the small body camera that so many people want, rather than a full body, vertical grip camera. So I think it competes in that arena. So what about you, Ron?
I mean, I'm looking at what SJ Square.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest video guy, but I can see how it would need to be at the same level as the A7 IV,
Okay.
A7 IV. I can see that.
Okay.
The A7 IV, A7R, or A7 IV. The A7R5 is getting ready to come out too. So
Okay, so I'm gonna actually talk about the three possible bodies: the Z8, Z7 III, and Z6 III. The Z8 needs to be almost as capable in video as the Z9. It has its limitations because of heat dissipation and everything else, because of being a smaller body. I think that's the cripple hammer that Nikon can't lift. It has to be there because of the size of the body. And I know you talked about a more robust body, so it falls between the vertical grip of the flagship and the size of the Z7, Z6 series. But even with that, I think that heat dissipation is going to be, when I say an issue, I mean they can't do what the Z9 does, and that's the only issue there. So I think it gets 8K, maybe 30. I think it gets 4K, 120, 60, 50, 30, and of course all the others between 24, whatever. And that is a big issue because Canon just dropped a camera a while back and they didn't have, I think they made it up in a firmware update, but 24 as well in those cameras. All right. So that said, I think it's 10-bit, no doubt about it. I think it gets ProRes RAW and maybe even in RAW. I know there's controversy over what's going on with Red, but I could care less about that. That's a done deal in my eyes. Yeah, that's just sensationalism for influencers.
That's gonna work its way out.
Yes,
and not be an issue.
so for the Z7 III, I don't see the need for all that. I think 4K is as much as you need. I don't think you need to see in RAW. Maybe ProRes RAW only because now that's becoming a thing, but 10-bit, yes. So 4K, obviously 120. And even if it didn't have 120, I see that camera as I spec it out right now, being more a stills monster for landscape, portrait, commercial photography, things like that, where there wouldn't be such a need for video. The Z6 III, I think, is where we jump back up in video specs because this is all your YouTubers and everybody else getting in reasonably priced camera that does all this and does it well. It's not just a video camera, but it's video centric. And maybe Nikon has some things up their sleeve that they can add to a camera that's video centric to help out the videographers that are jumping in at the bottom echelon. So I see, again, and this may be impossible because if they don't increase the body size, it's going to be difficult, but 8K 30 at least. But 4K, absolutely down. And you need 8K so they can downsample 4K because the downsampled, I'm sorry, oversampled 4K.
Yeah.
Because it's so much better, cleaner, brighter, sharper than downsampled or line skipping. So it has to have the 8K. Well, it could be a 6K, I guess, down oversampled too. So there you have it. So that's the video specs that I would like to see in those cameras if Nikon went down that path of Z6 III, Z7 III, and Z8. Yeah, and Sith said oversampled 4K is the way to go. Absolutely. Agree with you 100%. All right. There was one other. So we were talking based on my chart, I based everything off my chart, but let's go down Z8, Z7 III, Z6 III. Let's talk about sensor. Stacked.
If you're going to go with a shutterless system, it's going to have to be stacked.
Okay.
Absolutely. These have got
Okay.
Z9s coming down going forward.
Okay. And I agree with you. I'd love to see that. All stacked new sensors. How about megapixels for each one of them? How big?
I think 34 for the Z6 III. What do you think, Jeff? I think the day of 24 is over.
Yeah, 24 is old news. I agree. 33 to 36.
Gotta be.
For a Z6 III. For a Z8. I'll tell you, and I'm going to get a lot of crap for this one. I don't really see a huge benefit to going with 61 megapixels. I think the 45.7 that we got now in the Z9 is like the sweet spot for both stills and video. I don't really see the point of going higher than that, other than playing the marketing game to try to say, yeah, we've got a 61 megapixel too, just like Sony. And at some point, you know what? I mean, I think people got to get smart enough to just say, look, stop screwing with us with the marketing crap, you know? Some point in time, some of the stuff you're putting out, charging us more money for, doesn't give us a lot of benefit. It ain't worth the extra money. Cut it out.
I agree. So how about the Z7 III?
Z7 III,
maybe 52.
well, if you're gonna make that the high megapixel camera, Chuck, then you know I just that's gonna be.
But that's
higher.
me, Jeff. What do you think?
Well, I personally think the Z7 series and the Z6 series should just freeze in motion where they're at, other than maybe one more firmware upgrade, and then you put you roll all your money into the Z8. But if the Z6 and Z7 III were going to come out, I think the 33, 36 megapixel in the Z6 III, and I think you know, maybe you go stick with the 45 megapixel in the Z7 III.
Okay.
I think Jeff in the wildlife.
Yeah.
Wildlife put up what he said again. I was going to go that route. The 32
Okay.
for the 6.3, the 7.3. I could see that being about 60 to 62, 63 megapixels. Z8 45 to 50 megapixels. Speed Merchant for the Z8 body. I think we're good to go.
Yeah.
So and
gotta have USB. I think they should do this on the Z9 too, but I think you got to use that USB-C port for more than just hooking up a battery. You got to be able to hook up an SSD drive to save your files to.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think, you know, I only differ from you guys because I do believe the 100 megapixel or somewhere in that category sensor is coming. You know, Canon's experimented with it. I know Sony's experimented with it. There have been rumors to the like. And, you know, is Nikon going to say, well, my 60 megapixel is as good as the 100 megapixel? I don't know. Maybe they do make a stand there, or they go for the, you know, go all out with matching what Canon and Sony are doing. I know a lot of people don't care about 100 megapixel, and there's a lot of compromises, as Roy said, with such a high megapixel camera. But again, if you don't have to buy it and you're still getting what you want in another body, maybe it's time that we kind of let go of that, quit fighting with what others want, and just let them have it. If somebody wants it and Nikon wants to build it, it doesn't mean I'm going to buy it. It just means that somebody's getting the camera that they want. All right. So all that said, and there's so many other things to talk about, just like you said, Jeff, talking about the USB port being more than just a charging or a power, you know, outlet. Maybe they can do a whole lot more with that. So
Well, what about card slots too. I would assume we want dual card slots in all of those.
Yeah, I
And then
think
them all to be CFE type B, or I personally think they should be the same type. I don't really go for the mixed bag routine with the UHS2
I
and one slot and
I agree. I agree with that. Only because it's just time to do that. There's no easy time. It's kind of like Apple. Apple just jumps the gun and says, we're moving into the future, even though the future isn't here. And they took out all the USB A slots on the computers. So yeah, I think Nikon, it's just the point where they do that. If they have room. Now they're going to have to manufacture room to put two not USB, but two, uh, CF Express B cards in there.
yeah.
Go ahead, Ron.
This, I agree with Mr. Bixby. If you want to keep it at 61 megapixels, make it 16-bit.
Yeah,
to me, that's pushing the creative or the technology edge, because the only thing we have now is 14-bit.
Yeah,
and that would be, to me, that would be mind-blowing to get 16-bit in one of these next two bodies coming up, full frames coming up.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jeff, you're talking about Nikon seems to be more in the camp of not being on the bleeding edge. I don't see Nikon doing a 100 megapixel camera on any of the next generation cameras. And you may be right. However, Nikon did lead the way on higher megapixel sensors. Remember, the D800 was just a wow to everybody. That's the first camera over 24 megapixels. And everybody just went crazy. Everybody was, again, beating Nikon up, saying you don't need it, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be, the file sizes are going to be so big. Get ready to upgrade your computer and everything else and your storage space. Yet here we are. And look at what we have today. So yeah, you may be right, only because it's not the right timing, but I think they'll monitor what they think Sony and Canon are up to. And there'll be 100 megapixel. If Canon and Sony do it, there's going to be a 100 megapixel response from Nikon as well. It's not like it'd be the first time they, decided to jump into a very high megapixel camera.
But
I think if they did that, though, I would like to see them do it right. And I'm not saying Fuji did it wrong, but a lot of people, of course, this could just be people jealous because they don't have it, they'll say, well, the Fujis really aren't medium format. There's something a little less than that. So I could say, well, Nikon, do a body and make it so it's more, it's larger and it's more of a traditional medium format camera.
I was about to say, Mozman said, who knew Nikon was going to jump the gun and go shutterless?
That's right.
Who knew that? I agree with you, Mozman. So I was going to say, having said that, Chuck, they are about to follow Nikon and go mirrorless with some of their stuff.
Yep.
Shutterless with some of their stuff. Canon, Nikon, Canon, Fuji, and a few others are about to follow Nikon's lead on that.
You're right.
Technological leader in this space.
Well, and it all goes back to the processing power. I mean, Nikon came out with the X-Speed 7 just specifically for this, the ability to drive all this technology. And processing power is going to continue to get better and better. Just like Maz brought up earlier and Roy brought up, the X-Speed 8 is probably already in, I won't say in production, it could be, but definitely in development. And how much more capability is that going to give to cameras? The more power to drive all this technology.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree.
There's some comments in here in the chat about whether these cameras would be, I'm assuming 30 frames per second raw or compressed raw or what have you. And I think, of course, that gets into the Sony, well, we got 30 frames a second. And yes, they do. They have 30 frames a second raw, but their bit rate is not the same as what's in the Nikon, which is why the Nikon doesn't offer 30 frames a second raw. So people don't read into all the reasons why the Nikon isn't doing 30 frames a second. It has to do with the bit rate. So the bit rate on the Nikon is consistent, and it doesn't change. So I don't know what they should do with that. I mean, one can argue, that was a good marketing ploy on the part of Sony to kind of say, well, they don't do 30. Of course, they don't say what you got to set your camera up on the Sony to get 30, because, well, that would make it less desirable. But that's a good question. I don't know. Do you make do you make the Z8 where it can do 30 frames a second RAW without lowering the bit rate? That would one up them.
or 20 frames a second in RAW with 16-bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
the low bit is 14 at 30 frames a second. That would blow their minds, man.
Yeah, that would knock a few teeth out of people's mouths, wouldn't it?
So Jonathan talks about lower ISO in cameras, really underrated for quality of photos. No, I don't know if it's underrated, but you're right, Jonathan. Maybe people don't talk about that much.
I can hear you. I just got to check on something real quick.
Okay.
Well, with the low end on the Z9 is 64.
Yeah.
Right. But some of the other brands, I think, are lowest they go is 100.
Yeah. So now let's talk about this real quick, and then I'll turn you guys loose, whatever you want to talk about. But again, I'm just trying to throw some information in here, what everybody thinks and what they want. Again, in case Nikon happens to be listening. Computational photography, AI in cameras. How developed is AI right now? We're reaching some physical boundaries, or at least we believe to be physical boundaries. Let's talk dynamic range. Is there a place for AI to make up the difference in noise reduction and things like that in camera that doesn't hurt the image? Are we going to see that anytime soon? And would you like to see that in future Nikon cameras?
I think it would be nice to have like the results you get with Topaz denoise built in, providing it doesn't slow the camera down at all. If they can put that in the camera and not have it affect your frame rate or your buffer, because they make other improvements so it doesn't affect the frame rate or the buffer, then that would be fantastic.
So we're back to processing power. And
yeah.
Does anybody know, has Nikon stated, I doubt they have, but how much of the processor is being utilized with what the Z9 does? Is it maxed out, full potential? We know the Z6 or the X-Speed 6 has been maxed out now with all trying to put all the new AF technology and things like that into the cameras. How about the X-Speed 7? Is it near maxed, or with the Z9?
I don't think they're going to leak any of that out or say anything, because they don't want the competition to know whether they are running at 60% capacity or 90%.
Yeah, I didn't think that they'd been released. I just wondered if there'd been any of the third-party reviewers or somebody that had dug into the camera and found a way to check that or whatever. So go ahead.
I believe there's another 40-50% out of that X-Speed 7 we haven't seen yet.
Right.
There's some serious mileage, some serious gas left in that X-Speed 7. I think the X-Speed 6 and all of that, I like Jeff said, I think there's one more significant, semi-significant firmware update for that. And then it's on that. And then I do believe that the dynamic range piece is so important, man. And Nikon has had amazing dynamic range.
Yes.
I'd rather see that increase than the bigger megapixels. 16-bit and dynamic range, you had me at hello with those two.
Yeah.
So then, that could go back to the Z7 III could take a completely different turn and do that, work on just dynamic range, lower megapixels and blah, blah, blah. A lot of people want to see that actually. A lot of people in the chat talking about that. Artificially increasing dynamic range would add a great deal to the processor. And you're absolutely right, Roy. That's why I asked about the X-Speed 7. How much is left in that processor? Is it something that Nikon could consider, or will they? Is that going to be the future even, with the thirdware software that's out there? And you brought it up, Jeff. Topaz Noise works extremely well. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it definitely works extremely well. We're going to see that in body here in future cameras.
Chuck, well, I've
Yes,
talked to years have said just what Roy Bixby is saying. Every pro has said if there's some kind of a way 35 millimeter could get 16-bit like medium format,
yeah,
it's a wrap, man. I mean, everybody I've talked to, from the guys in Atlanta at Capture Integration, the store over there in Atlanta, because they sell a whole lot of medium format phase ones and Mamiyas and stuff. That's all they ever did over there with Zach Arias and all those guys. So they all, if you can get 16-bit out of 35 millimeter, it's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Do we want a camera to take pictures of what we see, or allow the camera to make the picture into something it is not? Well, it's the difference between manual steering and power steering. Do you want to feel the road, or do you want to be able to just drive comfortably? And I don't think that we'll ever have it where you can't manual everything in the camera body. I'm not suggesting that the cameras come out and you have no choice in the matter, but it's easy in menus and things like that to turn on and turn off capabilities. So, I agree with you somewhat, James, there. But Joe McNally said it when we asked him on Verhagen's interview. Well, do you miss film? He said, hell no. He said, technology is what it is, and I've embraced it, and it's made my life easier and better. So there you have it. There'll always be those that want to stick to nostalgia things. And, thank goodness we still have cameras out there to buy. Like some in here in the chat have just recently purchased the D700, recently purchased. So I don't know, man. I don't know if we try to, squash all the technology, but then what technology do we say? How do we go down that path? What do we accept and what don't we accept? And that argument begins. So
you got the new Google, I think it's a Google Pixel phone there, where you can erase a person off the camera. It's like you're doing a Photoshop deal right inside of the camera.
Yeah.
And I personally wouldn't want to see that in a camera. You want to do that, and then you have do it in your software. But it's obviously pushing AI to the limits in the cell phone market. If the processor still has room, which I'm sure it does in the X-Speed processor, the 7. I'd like to see them. It should be no brainer for them to squash the critics, and you could do a firmware update and do a 30 frames per second RAW on the Z9. I think easy if they wanted to. Yeah. I don't see why they couldn't.
I don't know. Again, that's the difference between physical barriers and just software barriers or processing power. But you're right.
Isn't it? At 40% or 30 to 40% more, Speed 7, Jeff, I gotta think that they can come out with something that has what we're talking about, that 16-bit part to it. There's gotta be more, because like I said, Chuck, the Z9, let's not be too common with what happened with the Z9. That is revolutionary. That's not just evolutionary. That's revolutionary. For you to have a shutterless camera,
with
those computations in it, that is revolutionary. I mean, that is so far beyond everybody else, guys. It's phenomenal. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't write it off. I'm with Mosman. I wouldn't write it off. I could see Nikon pulling off another, another miracle. I could see them doing it.
Yeah. So they did mention that they didn't give any specifics, but they came as close as I guess they will when they talked about the X-Speed 7 having 10 times the power of the X-Speed 6. It wasn't like doubled. I mean, they said it's 10 times more data than the X-Speed 6 processor. So you're probably right. There's a lot of room left in that X-Speed 7, Ron.
Yeah. Nikon just announced firmware updates, he said, for the D5 and D6.
Yep, they did. I didn't look at all of it. I just took a glance. I mean, there wasn't anything glaring. I think it was some bug fixes and really nothing significant. On the D6, processing power between the D6 and let's say the Z7 II, is there any difference? Yes, I think there is in the mirrorless, and that's what Mosman was bringing up. The processing power running the EVF is significant. Running the screen, running all everything else, and on the Z9, they knew that with going shutterless that they were going to have a lot of processing power to do that. So yeah, I think there is a difference obviously between a mirrorless body and a DSLR. Let's see. BFS. There you go. Now here's the smart people. Depends on is AI processing synchronous,
Yeah.
real time, or asynchronous. And okay, talking about whether it slows the camera down or not. So who knows BFS, or I'd entertain your thoughts on that. Somebody had just mentioned Professor Poland. I gotta go up here and find that again. That was kind of funny.
Mosman.
Was it? Well, no, there was one before that, I thought.
Well, that was when I think where they said Poland said their dynamic range isn't very important in a camera or something.
Yeah, there you go.
Silly comment like that.
Yeah, there you go.
That I forget where it was.
Albert James or Jimenez. Professor Jared P. claimed that dynamic range in modern cameras is unimportant and meaningless.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That says it all, folks. Don't watch his channel anymore. That says it all.
Enough evidence right there, isn't it, Jeff?
As the great Stan Lee used to say, "Enough said."
Oh my gosh, man, you guys are hilarious. Chuck, I hate to take off, man, but I've gotta get some honeydews done, and I've got 2 more client deliveries to do, man.
Keep doing that when I cough. I have to mute the mic. I said, don't apologize. Thank you very much for being in here. You bring so much to the conversation, as always. I love talking to you when you call me and straighten me out. I need that from time to time.
No, man, it's all brotherhood, man. All brotherhood.
Yes. I do appreciate it, though. And you're welcome in here anytime, as we always say, because you always bring so much to the table.
Jeff, blessings.
Take care, Ron. Love to see you.
Be blessed, man. Maz, man, be blessed. All y'all, man. Tell everybody we said hi. Nothing but one love, baby. One love.
There you go. All right.
Now
get out there and put it to use, man. Yeah. Like you do. Do your thing.
Do my best. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. So it's been a great chat today. I really appreciate all the comments.
Good show. Good show.
You guys have anything, is there anything you want to address before we wrap this up here soon, Jeff?
No, I mean, I think we covered, I think, everything from A to Z.
That's wonder. I've seen more visitors in here today than I've ever seen on a live stream. I really appreciate that. We're just trying to let's just try to get the word out that all is not lost. It's not the end. Let's not be negative. Let's be hopeful and hope that Nikon does get this body out this year. I really believe they will. They almost have to, and it just makes sense to do it. So, all right. Well, we've dressed down all the influencers and got a good chuckle out of them today. All the wonderful people in the chat. Again, don't think that your chat means nothing. Again, if anybody's watching to see what's going on and get a feel, feel the pulse of what's going on in the Nikon community, then they're looking at the chat as much as they are just the talking up here with the guests. All right. Yeah, please, if you haven't liked, drop a like. I really appreciate that. Um, I really appreciate it when you guys think enough of the channel that you want to join as a subscriber. And if you like these chats, man, we're on every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern time and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And from time to time, we have some folks that come in as other guests, but I like the regulars. It really makes it easy to stay in touch with you guys in the chat. So make sure you get over to Jeffrey's channel, Selective Imagery, and check out his videos. And Jeff, I'll let you plug that.
Yeah, I'm going to put one out probably tomorrow that I'm just going to say is I'm going to call it creative, and I'm going to call it something totally off the wall from what I normally have done.
Okay.
At that. And some people are not going to like it. And some people are going to think that I've lost my mind and I'm a little bit weird. And others will love it. So I'd be interested to see what the comments are if you go to the channel and watch it. But I'm going to put it out there sometime tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. I like the idea of creative. Sounds good to me. There is no wrong when it comes to art, and photography is art.
And it's definitely a strange one. Strange enough where I'm almost hesitating in putting it out there. But you may not get some of the insider commentary, and I'll leave it at that. But we'll see. We'll see how you react to it. It's going to be different.
All right, folks, you heard it. Get over there and check it out tomorrow. And leave him some constructive comments. You like it, you like it.
Yeah.
Mozman's headed to Big Sur, be gone 4 days. Got to keep shooting. Yep. So I know you're going to have a good time. Thanks, Ted. Good to see you in here, man. Yeah, James says you can't judge. You can never judge art. That's true. Cabin's supposed to have Wi-Fi. That'd be great, Mozman. There you go. Gustavo, thank you very much. Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, because I want to put some, like I said, drop some cards and things like that to kind of see where you guys want to go in the chats that we have too. Some polls, just like we just did with talking about the Z8, Z7 III, and Z6 III, because there's so many people out there that are naysayers. They just don't even want to hear about a Z8. They, and they've resigned to the fact that, or their opinion that it's not going to show up until next year. I don't want to hear that. It doesn't make sense. And, we're going to talk about it. If we're wrong, we're wrong. But what's the harm in talking about it? And maybe, again, Nikon's listening and taking notes to see what the consumer, want. All right. Michael here. Let's see. Again, the question, did they use all the power in dual X-Speed 6 processors in the Z6, Z7 Gen 2 bodies? I'm assuming that they came close, Michael. I really am. Only because Nikon knew what they were going to have to process files and everything in the Z9. And they knew they had to step it up, and they weren't going to get that out of the Z6, or I'm sorry, X-Speed 6 processors. And I think somebody, Mark Cruz, in one of his interviews actually said something about that, that those processors were for a time in a camera body or a place, and it was time to move on. Therefore, I hope and think Nikon will go to the X-Speed 7 for everything from this point forward. And it makes sense in a contracting for processors, for chips,
Yeah, they're going to get cheap. They're going to get a better deal if they produce more, buy more. It'll get them cheaper.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. James, Z8 is the only missing Z in the lineup. I agree. And so do so many other people. So don't listen to all the haters out there that say we're crazy or we're building up expectations. Of course we are building up expectations because we have expectations. All right, Robert, thank you, man. We throw this in there. If Nikon's listening, put an Arca Swiss foot on the long lenses. There you go. All right. You heard it, Nikon. Everybody's been complaining about it. Here it is. Typed out real nice and neat for you. All right. Thanks, James. I know a guy had second engine mounted in the bed of his pickup truck. It would start and run, but once affected anything. Moral of the story, it's for show. All right.
Yeah, at least you know what they could do is just add a code when you order the lens, or sell it as an accessory where you can get the Arca Swiss foot to put on it.
Yeah.
For and charge something cheap so you're not really putting the screws to anybody.
Yeah, I hit the wrong one, but we'll see what this is. As the chip die shrinks continue to happen, we should get cheaper, faster, and less heat. Okay. John, it's a good point. Nikon, please don't put the camera out until it's ready, ironed out. Do not want criticism. I agree with you. And as much as it hurts me to say that, you're absolutely right. I got to hope that the Z8 has been in production, or not in production, maybe it has, but has been in development for long enough that we're soon to get that announcement for it. And it is ready. All right. Thank you, Siths. I appreciate it. And if you're listening, Nikon, both Mozman and Jeff want their 800 millimeter PF lens. And I got to mention too, Greg's wildlife photography. He wants it as well. So can you guys please put an extra crew on a night shift to get that lens out to these people that are looking for it? All right. All right. Yeah, we're going to take off anyway, Jeff, Leslie. Thank you very much. Again, thank you guys for jumping in here. And back to my plea for subscribers. If you've enjoyed it and you want to continue to enjoy it, motivate me. Subscribe and drop a like, and it keeps me motivated to get back in here and do it all again. But I'm having a good time. I hope you guys are. All right. Send us all lenses, Mozman says. Absolutely. There you go. We'll leave that up for the end here. Yep.
No. We could do some great testing for them in real world testing.
There you go. There you go. All right, guys. Everybody have a wonderful rest of the week. Here's hump day. We're going to work it down now to the weekend. Saturday night, we'll be back in here. Jeff's going to drop a new video tomorrow, you say, Jeff?
Yeah, tomorrow.
All right. And of course, who knows what we're going to get next from Mr. Vahagan, but go check his channel out. I think everybody here comes from his channel, so I may be speaking to myself, but check him out. Mr. Ron Pollard, and you can go to ronpollard.com, check out his work. Fantastic working photographer, does a whole lot out there, and definitely a Nikon representative if there ever was one. All right, that said, I'm going to go get some grits. Thank you, James, for reminding me. God bless you all, and we'll see you again on Saturday night. Hopefully, we'll have a new Aussie in here, Mr. Ralph Mayhew. He seems to feel the same way we do about the Z8, so he may join us. I hope so on Saturday night, and he can give you his thoughts on what's coming. So that said, that's it. Everybody have a wonderful rest of the week. We'll see you Saturday night.
Have a good one.